Good evening, council members. For the record, Donaldson Hearing here tonight on behalf of Minto Communities to give you an update on the project that's out in the Central Western community area. It's a very exciting project, and I know there's certainly some areas that the gardens may have some concerns, and we're really here tonight to give you an update and certainly to open that dialogue where we can have open discussion about any of the issues that you have and how we might be able to address them. I have with me in the audience Mr. John Carter, who is with Minto Communities, as well as Andrea Troutman with PTC Consulting. Andrea is our traffic consultant for this project. And Minto Communities is a company that's been in South Florida here for over 35 years. They build communities. They're not developers and sell land tracts, but they build communities. That's been their experience, and they've been out in the Western communities for quite some time. Actually, some 20 plus years. They built the Olympia project, and they built the Madison Green project out in Royal Palm when Royal Palm was still a very, very small town. So they're a well-known quantity. Like other builders, they're from Canada. They are it is a wholly owned family business, but privately managed by an outside management team. The project itself is located in an area that we refer to as the Central Western communities. And I'll be showing you a number of areas because this area is a very important area that's been an area of focus by Palm Beach County for the past 20 years because of a number of the changes in the land use patterns that have evolved since about 1965. The project is 3,788 acres. Seminole Pratt Whitney goes through the center of the project. To the east is State Road 7, and the dotted line is State Road 7 extended to North Lake. The Florida's Turnpike, which is about 8 miles to the north of the site, and then I-95, which is actually a little bit over 10 miles to the north of the site. To the south is Southern Boulevard, Okeechobee Boulevard, and North Lake Boulevard, which forms the northern boundary of the site. The area, which was developed in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s by the Royal Palm Beach Colony, is defined by the U.S. Census as actually being an urban area. Often you hear of this area as being rural, but given the population of over 40,000 people within that area, about 18,000 lots, it actually exceeds the U.S. Census criteria to be defined as an urban area. And it is a limited urban service district boundary, which makes it a little different than a number of other properties out in the area. It's important when we look at a property like this to understand the proximity and the proximity to the gardens. And so this slide helps do that. The arrow points right at Military Trail and PGA Boulevard, and the distance is actually 14 miles as the way the crow flies, but it's actually 24 miles when you look at vehicle miles traveled due to the very poor roadway network that exists in the area and the issues with mobility. To the city of West Palm Beach, it's 16 miles, about 8 miles to Wellington, and about 17 miles to the coast. To kind of give you a little bit of comparison, the area of West Palm Beach to the city of Palm Beach Gardens is actually only about 10 miles in distance. So West Palm is actually much closer than what the Minto West project is. The green area that's highlighted is an area which is largely a divide. It's a natural area that splits the coastal urban areas of Palm Beach County with what ultimately happened out into the western community. So important geographic feature. And the intent of the county study is to try to rebalance the land use in the western communities to reduce the dependence of this area on the eastern communities and to provide infrastructure to an area that's been very underserved by an infrastructure basis for the past 20 years, and I'll show you why. So this is really the area that we're looking at focusing on. This is a 5-mile radius that surrounds the Minto West project, and so the focus of the county for the past 20 years is to look at basically trying to put some remedies to an area which is identified as urban sprawl. In fact, the Western Community area, if you were to talk to Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council or the Department of Economic Opportunity, they would tell you it's the poster child for urban sprawl. Whole bunch of 18,000, 1.25 acre gridded lots, no water, no sewer, very little utilities. Basically was carved up like Port St. Lucie, Port Mayaca, Port Charlotte, and done as land sales all over the world. A land use pattern that's unsustainable, and a land use pattern that wouldn't be permitted today given today's land development regulations. So with this project, it's the goal of the county and the goal of our development team to rebalance the land use, to create an inward focus, to keep an area of density and activity that's central to this basically 33 square mile area that surrounds us. It's within inside that 5-mile radius. The applications that are before the county are fourfold. First, there's a land use amendment, including some text amendments, which will modify the existing conceptual plan for the property. The text amendments are to a specific section of the comp plan dealing with the agricultural enclave provisions, and they actually are very much so more restrictive than what they are proposed, what they are allowed now, and I'll show you some comparison. Ultimately, we'll be rezoning the property to a traditional town development, together with an approval of a TTD master plan, and then there's some companion staff-initiated amendments to basically the zoning code, or what the county calls the Unified Land Development Code. We've done an extensive amount of outreach. I'm not going to go through all of these, but we've mailed postcards to 18,000 homes. We've had community meetings. We've constructed a community center on site, and for the past better part of a year, 2-3 nights a week, we've had meetings out there where the public is invited to come out and not only provide input, but to participate in the process through a charrette process and provide ideas. And the master plans that you will see and the evolution of them, there's actually been a significant change to the plans as a direct result of the community input that we have received. Even from those folks that don't support us, we've listened and we've made some significant modifications, which you'll see in the plan. Additionally, our team, as we've told any of the folks that we've met with, we're fully committed to meet with any group, whether they're for us or against us, to engage really in an adult conversation, to dialogue and collaborate on what's best for the community and how to address identified concerns. From a background perspective, this area, the central western community area, was identified by Palm Beach County back in the late 1990s, and for many years they studied it, which basically culminated in 2005 in what they referred to as the sector plan. And this was very important because the county recognized that this area, with 18,000 lots, 40,000 residents, no water, no sewer, needed something to make it more sustainable in the long term. And we're not looking at just today, but also looking at 50 years. So the project that we're proposing is a 30-year project, but the county is looking at it at a 50-year horizon as Florida continues to grow. The land use pattern that exists here today is not sustainable, and for a number of the reasons that you'll see. In 2010, Nat Roberts and a group referred to as Cowrie Judge proposed a DRI with about 10,000 units and 4 million square feet. The county begged them to reduce that to 6,500 units and to 2 million square feet, but they said no, and the county commission denied that request. They did not have staff support. In 2008, the legislature, through a special act, created what they called an agricultural enclave. And then the Cowrie Judge team proceeded to stay underneath the DRI threshold with basically 3,000 units of what's the equivalent of a public shopping center of 235,000 square feet, to stay under that DRI threshold. The county at the time actually begged them to consider providing additional non-residential uses, workplace uses, to keep people in the western community, which has been a goal for many, many years out in the western area, to have employment opportunities. At the time, the property owner refused. In 2013, Minto purchased the property. They submitted an application for 6,500 dwelling units. That has now been substantially reduced by about 2,000 units to 4,546 dwelling units. The county, however, came back to Minto and said, we would like you to consider adding additional non-residential uses. to rebalance the land use. That's what's always been a part of their sector plan, and that is something that has been added to the plan. So in 1964, this is what the area looked like. It was all wetlands. 3-4 years later, it became Cowrie-Judge Grove, and then several years after that, Royal Palm Beach Colony basically took the area that you see as wetlands surrounding this 4,000-acre site and gridded it up into 1-acre lots, which are the 18,000 lots and 40,000 people who surround the site today. Then they went further than that. As many of you may recall, back in 1989, the county made a further mistake by granting broad-scale concurrency exemption to every single lot out in the western community. That means that they could go forward without having to have traffic capacity, water, sewer, utilities, and any other public service that would typically be required by a developer if he was coming into a community like that. So that basically exacerbated the problem, then leading to the fact that the area is so underserved today. This is the land use plan that was approved in 2008 for 3,000 dwelling units and 235 square feet. It was not much of a plan. The county begged the developer at the time to submit a master plan and to rezone it and to provide some details. They didn't do that because their goal was to basically to facilitate land sale tracts. They were going to subdivide the property out into multiple tracts and basically fall under a number of the concurrency thresholds. Their land use pattern did not promote a balanced land use, and therefore it was not supported by the county. It provided limited lands for civic uses, for recreation, for water resource benefits, and provide very little connectivity. And again, of course, they did not provide a master plan. So in 2013, in November, we did submit a conceptual plan, and this is the plan that was originally submitted, and it changed drastically as we went through the process. This plan had 6,500 dwelling units of 1.4 million square feet of non-residential, and as we went through the process and we listened to concerns, we reduced the amount of commercial that was adjacent to residential. We added additional civic sites and park sites that the county asked for. We continued to go through the process, and ultimately we added additional open space and green space, reduced the number of dwelling units by 2,000 square feet, increased our connectivity and our walkability of the community, and ultimately this is the plan that's now before the county and is being recommended for approval by county staff. This particular plan, which I'll walk through it in a little bit more detail, has a number of components. First, the natural area of this site is actually 55% of the site. Now understand, we don't have any wetlands on site, so everything we'll do will be revegetating. 55% of the site is natural area. It doesn't include 1 square foot of green space that would exist inside a residential parcel. We have a town center, which will be about 500,000 square feet of commercial and office uses. All of the other non-residential is intended to be workplace. We have public civic sites for fire stations, for police substations, for governmental centers, for a 50-acre park site, which we're dedicating to Palm Beach County south of Seminole Ridge High School. Also sites for churches, synagogues, and other public uses. We have about 1.5 million square feet of workplace, and that consists of light industrial, research and development, and office space designed to provide for employment in the western communities. Some have said we're creating another Wellington Green Mall. By no means. 500,000 square feet is basically the equivalent of 2 public centers, and it's really intended to meet the needs of this community as well as the western community. All of the areas that you see in yellow are those areas of residential, and I'll show you another slide that shows you how we allocate that density throughout the site. We have 3 high schools or 3 schools that exist on site today, in addition to a 12-acre school site that we'll be dedicating to Palm Beach County. There's Seminole Ridge High School, which is an excellent high school, and then there's Grove Elementary and Middle School, which is located in the northeast corner of the site. Looking at it at kind of the next level of detail, this is basically our block plan. You're probably aware that in the agricultural enclave there is a requirement that the site be developed as a traditional neighborhood development utilizing new urbanist principles. So much like a number of the things that you saw with the Brigger property, those walkability principles are being incorporated into the plan. The town center is the focus not only of our community, but is intended to provide for the needs of the entire Western community, to be an opportunity rather than driving into Palm Beach Gardens or driving into Wellington to go to the movies, to have the opportunity to have that entertainment exist on site as a part of the local community. We have traditional neighborhood developments, and basically 2/3 of our density is located in what we refer to as the core here. As you proceed to the exterior of the site, there's much lower densities. So 2/3 of the units are within the traditional neighborhood development areas and intended to be very, very walkable. Of that, there's only 800 multifamily units. We had proposed apartments, but we have removed the apartments because the neighbors in the community, Western community, requested that we do that, and we've complied. The balance is workplace opportunities. We are speaking with a number of opportunities with the Business Development Board. We're providing them with incentives to help bring business to this area. Of course, it would be much different than the type of businesses that are going to locate in West Palm or in the city. We're not looking at logistics. We're not looking for basically distribution warehouse, but other opportunities to meet the needs of the Western community. Around the perimeter, we have some very, very low densities, and those we have more traditional planned unit developments that you here in the Gardens are quite familiar with. And we have a substantial amount of parks. We have 242 acres of public park. 242 acres of public park. That's 5 times the per capita standard of the Gardens and that of Palm Beach Gardens that we're providing on site to be maintained and constructed by Seminole Improvement District, which is very similar to Northern Palm Beach County Improvement District. It's an improvement district. So that's a huge benefit to keep people into the Western community because they're very underserved by parks, both in the Wellington area as well as within the acreage area. We're also proposing rural parkways throughout the site. Those are patterned very much so. If you were to look at PGA Boulevard, going to the west of I-95 and the Turnpike, the area along Mirasol, those are what we would refer to as a rural parkway with meandering pathways, multimodal paths to meet the needs of the area. And that's something that we've done in cooperation with the county. Those are actually voluntary elements that we have offered to do in our working with the county. We have substantial buffers. Our buffers average 400 feet on the minimum, but we have our density within 1/8 mile of the site is less than 0.8 units to the acre. Adjacent to Loxahatchee Groves, it's about 0.5 units to the acre. So we've been very sensitive in how we approach our boundaries. And if you look around the outer side, and I'm just trying to show you some of the negative space, how much open space exists within the plan. The distance from our western tip to the first development area is over 1 mile. The distance from our eastern boundary to the first development area is over 1/2 of a mile. So a substantial amount of green space and buffers that we provided. Substantial buffers to all our homes. I'm not going to bore you with some of these elements, but it is important for you to understand that we are listening and that we're trying to be very responsive to our neighbors and to provide the appropriate buffer to the area. Walkability. Since we are required to develop as a traditional neighborhood development or utilizing new urbanism, as you saw within the Brigger plan, every single home was within a walking distance of a major park of at least 1/2 of an acre, most of them with greater than an acre, within actually 1/3 of a mile, 1,320 feet. So it's a very, very walkable community. Just an example of how some of the communities are laid out. This is what one of your traditional plan unit developments would look like. Our town center, it's not going to look like a shopping center. It's going to look more like a town center, low scale. These are 1- and 2-story buildings. We're not allowed to build big box out there. The maximum size footplate is 50,000 square feet, mainly to accommodate a Publix type of a center. And this is intended to be the heart and soul of the community. This particular town center was modeled, or actually is a town center up in the Villages. If any of you have been to the Villages, this is their Brownsfield town center. Very, very successful architecture, kind of turn of the century Florida. This is a little country-ish or Davie-ish. We probably won't go that far, but just to give you an idea of the scale and the character we're trying to achieve within the community. What are the impacts? $1.3 billion economic impact during construction, basically a $4 million annual recurring impact afterwards. What are the benefits? Well, there's significant regional water resource benefits. First, for flooding, that particular area has significant flooding problems. We have committed to provide 168 CFS of direct peak hour, peak flow, on-demand drainage for the area, as well as to provide over 240 acres of additional storage beyond what our capacity is on our site, providing regional water recharge. We'll have over 600 acres of lakes on the site. We're taking lakes, we're providing all the drainage for all of our surrounding schools. From a transportation perspective, we'll be generating in excess of $50 million in fees. And often we hear, well, you're just paying your impact fees. Make no mistake, we'll be paying a substantial contribution above our impact fees, and this will be able to go to fix a lot of the problems that already exist on the roadway network without the first trip being put on the network by Minto West. From an environmental perspective, we'll actually be conserving 2 to 3 billion gallons a day, in which Minto currently has the first right to draw the water out to utilize for irrigation of their agricultural purposes out of the M Canal. They have that right before the city of West Palm Beach. So by reducing this withdrawal, this water will be able to flow to Grassy Water Preserve, providing additional hydration to the preserve as well as the Loxahatchee River. We'll be providing over 2,100 acres of open space and providing a very, very sustainable development with a balanced land use that will reduce the vehicle miles traveled. Will there still be cars on the road? Yes, but the carbon footprint will be substantially reduced because we're able to change the directionality and utilize the existing infrastructure much more efficiently than what it can be used now. Currently, this entire region relies on well and septic. Will be 100% Palm Beach County water and sewer, which already exists to the site. The infrastructure is there. The county made the investment when they were originally doing the Scripps project. That infrastructure is there, and nobody's taking advantage of it. We'll have the opportunity. A lot of recreation, a lot of civic sites. But what does this mean for Palm Beach Gardens? And I know that that's what you're interested in. First of all, it's a long way away. 24 miles by a drive, 17 miles from here. It's about 7.5 miles to the city golf course by a drive, probably about 6.5 by the way that the crow flies. But what does it mean? From a water and sewer level of surface perspective, there's no impact to the city. No impact, we're not drawing out of well fields, we'll actually be providing greater water recharge. Schools, we have 3 schools on site, plus we'll be providing an additional elementary school. Student population in the area has been declining for years. There are 3 mega charter schools that are opening up in the region. That's going to continue to have a burden on the schools throughout in that area. So we have no impact that probably have a benefit on the school situation. Flood protection, providing significant not only storage but discharge capacity, of which we're giving up that we have already dedicated to the property today. Conservation, we have the opportunity to provide significant water recharge to Grassy Waters and to the Loxahatchee Slough, in addition to substantial water quality improvement. That area is driven on septic. We're not changing of the 18,000 homes, we're not changing out their septic. They're going to rely on septic and wells, but we'll be providing additional groundwater recharge, and we'll be planting the majority of these areas out as marshes, sloughs, and polishing ponds in order to create the environmental community that we're proposing to create. Parks and recreation, there's 0 impact on the gardens. We'll actually be providing 5 times the requirement of the gardens, 5 times the requirement of Palm Beach County, and that doesn't include the first piece of private recreation that would occur inside the parcels. As far as the roads, and I have a slide that will kind of get into a little bit more detail, we will not be requiring any improvements to North Lake Boulevard, which I know is your concern. Our previous plan required the widening of North Lake Boulevard to the east of the B line. We will not be requiring any improvements beyond what is required by the existing land use today. The rebalancing of the land use, however, will do a lot, because it's basically going to reduce the vehicle miles traveled. It will also change the peak directionality of that traffic and provide for a more efficient use of the existing infrastructure. So this map right here is an important one. All of the cells that are highlighted in kind of the tan or the orange are roadway segments that are deficient today without one trip for Minto West. They're deficient today, no money to deal with it, without one trip for Minto West. The areas in the blue are really the only links that are the areas in the blue are the links that are impacted with Minto West at the 2996, its existing approval. The proposed project, as it stands today, only impacts one external link. One external link is further declined or fails as a result of the project, and that is Okeechobee Boulevard from Royal Palm Beach to Wildcat Way, which is a very, very small segment that would be required to be 8-lane. But we will be providing $15 million in contribution, and because this is a negotiation, the county will be looking for a lot of that money to be upfronted. This is at least a 20 to 30 year project. The county will be requiring a lot of that activity to occur up front. A lot of things we can do with Seminole Improvement District because we have the ability to bond. So there can be some early improvements to the roadway network that would be a benefit. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. There'll be traffic impacts. The land use mix, however, if we don't start to change the balance of the land use in that area, the ability to solve traffic in Palm Beach County in the long term will be very difficult to accommodate. We will be reducing the vehicle miles traveled, and from day one, Minto has basically said, is there a better way? We know it's approved today. 100% of those 3,000 units are coming to the east. So if we don't do something to keep them there with parks and recreation and activities, we're not serving the region and rebalancing the land use. What we're trying to do is to rebalance it. We think that we can do that with our plan. And before I close this, let me give you a quick comparison with our two plans. With the existing plan, there's a 100-foot buffer that goes around the boundary. With the proposed plan, there's 400 feet plus, in many areas over a mile. With the existing plan, there's 40% open space, but that includes the open space in the individual pods. With the proposed plan, there's actually 55% open space, and it doesn't include 1 square foot of open space in the pods. Recreation, the existing plan has a little bit less than 30 acres, and some of that's a buffer that runs along the western boundary of a school that's really unusable in the existing condition today. We're proposing 242 acres of recreation. The existing approval has very little civic. There aren't fire station sites, there aren't police substation sites, they aren't located in an area where they're usable to serve the public. We're proposing 72 acres of public civic plus private civic. There's no commitment to water resources in the existing plan. We're providing a significant impact or benefit to water resources, quality, supply, storage, and outfall. Employment opportunities, not one. A public shopping center. Everybody's coming to the east. We're proposing basically 200 acres of economic development center. That's 1.5 million square feet, which we propose to be jobs. Multiple rural parkways. We also, for the equestrian community, have bridle trails. And we've made a commitment to show our hand, to show exactly what we're proposing to build, to show our phasing, and we're going forward concurrent with a master plan. So that's our presentation. From a schedule perspective, this goes to the Planning Commission tomorrow morning. It will go to the Board of County Commissioners on August 27th, and to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval on October 29th. We do have a strong staff recommendation of approval, and you say, well, why? This seems like a big project. It is, but the county understands we've got one opportunity to fix something that has really been broken. And this is an opportunity to really to ameliorate a land use pattern that is something that is unsustainable, that the county can no longer sustain, that the taxpayers of Palm Beach County can no longer sustain, and will provide an opportunity to provide services to an area that is greatly underserved, and without a project like this would not be served in the future. So yes, there is an increase in dwelling units. We're also bringing the workplace. But when you looked at the comparison of the benefits that go along with the increase in dwelling units, it creates a land use pattern that's far more sustainable than what is currently approved today. So we appreciate the opportunity to make the presentation. We're available at any time, Mr. Ferris, council, to sit down with you, to sit down with your consultants. If there are concerns, we have a big say on where that $50 million gets spent. There's a lot to be said there, and I know that this commission has priorities. I know North Lake Boulevard is a priority of yours. We are pleased to say that we've reduced our impacts on North Lake Boulevard, and we'll be changing the directionality of traffic. But if we talk together and we collaborate, I think we could find solutions that would work to everybody's benefit. So I thank you. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I knew I took probably more time than you wanted me to. I'm always brief.
That never happens, Don. Never happens with you. You're always within the allotted time schedule. Yeah, very good. But no, very thorough presentation. Thank you. Any questions for Don?
I have a few questions, but the one question I have, in your presentation, Don, you talked about 1.5 million square feet of commercial.
Employment.
Employment, okay.
Yes.
But you never mentioned the dwelling units. How many are there?
Oh, I did. I just, sorry if it's 4,500,
46.
4,546 dwelling units.
So there's an
It's
increase of
1,500 over the, what's the
Over
existing approved.
what's approved today. And you know that there are no north-south trunk roads out there at all, correct? So you're saying that you're going to capture all of the traffic out west. None of it's coming east.
That would be an incorrect statement.
I'm
You're
just speculating.
absolutely, Counselor, you're absolutely right. Some of that traffic is going to come east. But what we'll be able to do, and the way we were required to do our traffic report in the county was to only look at our project. We weren't allowed to look at any redistribution of what happens to the roadway network once we put our project in there and we create this new nucleus of employment. So in looking at our project and what we can do, we make a significant difference in the directionality of the traffic that would occur going eastbound. Not only eastbound in the morning, we're actually currently today, in the today world, 80% of the traffic within that region is eastern bound, whether it's on North Lake Boulevard or on Southern Boulevard, but North Lake Boulevard, about 80%. Our traffic, which would traditionally be 80% going eastbound, we're able to change that. So without looking at the redistribution, that number goes, using the very conservative basis of the county, goes to 55% eastbound on our traffic. Does that make a significant, does it change that 80% in total, to 55%? It doesn't, but it does make a difference as we try to rebalance the land use pattern in that area. The absence of that, the absence of those services and those facilities in this particular region requires everybody to come in for employment rather than be able and drive. Well, if they came to Palm Beach Gardens, it'd be about a 24-mile drive by the way that the roads are today. That's a long drive, as opposed to being able to go 3 or 4 or 5 miles to find an opportunity for employment. And we believe that we're able to create that. And we are proposing to build some of that non-residential in our first phase of development. Somebody always asks us, well, you're not going to build that till down the road. No, if you look at our phasing plan, it's very balanced, and there's a substantial amount of non-residential in the very first phase.
Okay, good.
All right.
I'll jump in later.
So I guess what you're saying in kind of going along with what Eric was saying, you're saying that there's no additional trips on North Lake Boulevard?
No, that would be deceiving you. There are additional trips on North Lake Boulevard. We're saying
So then
two
what-
things.
Have they decreased from this plan then
They're significantly
approved plan?
decreased from the plan where we had 6,500 dwelling units.
Right.
There's a significant decrease. And when we added the non-residential, we then also didn't necessarily decrease our total number of trips. Our total number of trips in the overall project did go down fairly substantially, but we're able to change the direction of a number of those trips, a good number of those trips, so that in the morning, they're coming in, and in the afternoon, they're going out. The direct opposite of the dynamic that currently exists on North Lake Boulevard today. We will have an impact on North Lake Boulevard.
So what
We
is
will-
that impact? Do
I
you
can
know?
get back.
By trips?
I can get back with you on the exact number of
Okay.
trips, but I,
And then also, what is the percentage or the capture, internal capture rate used on the approved plan versus the internal capture rate on the proposed
and I
plan?
can. Yeah, the approved plan had no, very little non-residential, so it'd be a very, very small percentage. With the proposed plan, the internal capture is 30% for the PM peak hour traffic,
Only?
only 30%. So compared to other mixed-use developments, that's actually a fairly small number.
And then I would be curious to know what the impact is on trip-wise on North Lake Boulevard. And then how far out does the impact occur? How far out as far as miles?
We'd be glad to get that information to you.
Okay.
Okay. Don, I think one of the things that is lacking out in that area currently is professional and medical office. Or do you have a proposal to put professional and medical office there?
Oddly enough, the one sector that seems most interested is the medical sector because it's not available. The distances to travel are a long way. So we've had a lot of interest from the medical area for freestanding ER type uses, medical office buildings, and those things that we think that would be probably some of the first jobs. Of course, we're looking for other employment, industrial, some research and development, which would be obviously not life sciences. But maybe there's, we're closer to Pratt Whitney, maybe some aerospace. Who knows? We're working very hard on trying to find opportunities.
It'd be difficult to get the employers out there, but the professional and medical office, I think, would not be that difficult. And to me, if you want to capture, because for this to work, I think you have to capture trips out of the acreage to keep them from coming east and have them come to Callery Judge versus going there, which also brings me up to, and forgive me, Jupiter, you want to make sure that your town center doesn't become an Abacoa, so it has to be well visible and well attended and have the right mix of uses to make sure people are attracted out there.
Well, I'm actually very proud of our plan. We work very, very hard, and I can tell you, as you know, even in the gardens, as things are developed, I'll go to this slide because it's just quicker. As things are developed, with the input, the plan gets better. And we met with Michael Busha on a number of occasions, and the town center is located in an area where our main roads coming from State Road 7 will come through the site right around the town center area. It's also oriented onto but separated from Seminole Pratt Whitney, and so it is looped with our two major roads being Persimmon and what we refer to as 60th or Town Center Parkway.
Right. In addition, let's talk a little bit. As long as you've got this up here, the eastern and western open space areas, what are you proposing? Is that going to be an upland area? Is that going to be some type of wetlands mixture?
Most of the areas that you see in blue will be wet blue upland. We're going to reforest the entire site. We've got a lot of pines out on the site because they started to actually grow them agriculturally. We'll relocate them. We'll recreate pine forest. The area on the western end, we anticipate probably continuing as an agricultural operation of some light, maybe some large community garden type activities that could be, kind of an interesting marketing touch. But we're looking at, we can't mow 2,000 acres of grass. And so we have about over 600 acres of water and marsh. So we anticipate reforesting that consistent with our rural parkway concepts.
Yeah, my other concern too here is, this is more, West Palm will ask you this question, I hope. If you're going to be discharging water to the M Canal, which is good,
We don't discharge to the M.
Okay.
We have the rights, the
To
unequivocal
withdraw.
rights to withdraw from the M. All of our water, we have a 200-foot right-of-way that goes 5 miles that we own in fee simple, 5 miles to the C-51, and it goes west to the STAs. But
Okay.
the water quality leaving our site will be far better than any water quality that ever enters our site.
You know me well, because that's what I was going to ask is, how are we going to ensure water quality? You're not going to have any filter marshes, I assume.
We are going to filter marshes.
Oh, you are? Okay.
We envision the areas that you see in blue being very large, vast wetlands and marsh areas. They're easier to maintain. We want to create a lot of wildlife today. There's no environmental resources on the site. We have about 150 acres of ditches that are core jurisdictional, but not a single wetland, not a single upland. So we will be recreating all of that.
Yeah, so these areas here in blue, I assume that they were deeper areas, so they're not as deep as I'm assuming.
Yeah, we would hope, we have a lot of fill that's going to be generated, just in case you need any fill. We have a lot of fill that's going to be generated from this site, so in a lot of these areas, the shallower marshes will reduce how much we have to dig.
Okay. Are you having any plans or any contemplation of putting some type of public transportation system within the project?
We actually are. We have spoken with Palmtran. We have agreed to provide a park and ride. We're also providing a transit stop on both sides of Seminole Pratt Whitney. They currently have no service to this area right now, even though there's a need. If we come out here, they're going to provide that service. So we'll have a park and ride on either side, or a terminal on either side of the town center, and a park and ride down in the economic development area.
Okay, so you're not going to be shedding any water north, you're going to be taking it south and west.
All of our water, the only water that would go to the north would be the water that we would be able to conserve by no longer taking our withdrawals that we have by right out of the M Canal. So that water would be able to continue to flow to Grassy Water, and a portion of what goes to Grassy Water goes into the Loxahatchee Slough. And that's between 2 and 3 billion gallons of water. That's the equivalent of Lake Mangonia. All the water supply for all of the city of West Palm Beach is about 3 billion gallons, just to give you an idea how much water would be conserved.
Now, you'll be able to, because as you know, after Hurricane Isaac, I think you said this in your presentation, but I want to confirm it. After Hurricane Isaac, we had major flooding in both Corbett and the acreage, which the district let that water come out the C-17 and the C-18 at such rapid rates that it picked up a fair amount of turbidity and, was a brown gunge. Would you be able to collect some of that water?
We will, because, of course, after Hurricane Isaac, we were high and dry. We have the 23rd water management permit ever issued. We have the right to discharge on peak. We basically have indicated we'll give up half of what we have the right to discharge, which would enable this area of about 15 square miles to the north to come into the site. Of course, they were flooded for 3 weeks. They were doing emergency services with airboats. We would be able to take that water into our site, polish it, and discharge it to the STA, because we have a dedicated source. We have a 2-mile, a 200-foot right-of-way and a canal that we own for our own dedicated use.
We in Palm Beach Gardens actually had some flooding in Steeplechase because the C-17 was carrying so much water after that. And I don't know if you saw the C-17, but in North Palm Beach, it was almost overflowing its banks. It was so high to try and get that water out of there. So if you could store some of that water, are you going to be tied into, I assume you are, you're going to be tied into the water management district grid so you can lower water levels for storage? Should we be looking at it?
Absolutely, and in fact, we've taken it a step further, David. We've been meeting with Loxahatchee Groves and others so that there can be a bigger regional picture, because there's some opportunities, and we met with Steve Yohe and his group down there today, one of our many, many meetings, and there's an opportunity to help Loxahatchee Groves, because often during the dry season, they don't have water. And then much of their areas, they can't discharge either. So collectively, as a region, we're kind of taking it at a bigger picture to see how we can make the entire basin, C-51 area, certainly within this 5-mile radius, function more efficiently than it does today.
And you were talking about discharging into the future C-51 basin. So one of my other concerns, is the STAs at high water get more water than they can handle. And, when the lake is up over 14 feet, of course, the Corps is, claims first right, and then dumping all that water down the St. Lucie. So we've got to be very careful that we balance water here. If you can store water, that would be the
And with
best
all of
thing.
our open space, we have the opportunity to store a tremendous amount of water on our site before ever having to discharge.
All right, I think I bored you guys enough, right?
You done now with the H2O stuff?
Yep.
We were waiting for the rock questions next, or anything else?
What is the subterranean?
That's okay.
I know there's
Basement.
a little bit of rock out there.
Are we talking Anastasia Formation, or are you actually in the?
That's it, Don, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, as always. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks. John, Andrea, thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Next up, we have the Plat 1 update. We had got a list of questions and concerns from Mr. Steve Martino last month, so we're going to address some of those issues tonight. We do have some follow-up questions from Mr. Martino as well that I'd like staff to also get involved in that and follow up after this meeting or in the next week or so directly with him as well, please. And then, Mr. Martino, I have a card from you, and I'll allow you to come up after the presentation. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ansley Marr. I'm the Unified Services Director, and David Reyes and I, our Public Services Emergency Director, will be presenting the report on Plat 1 this evening. First slide I'd like to show you is just a location map of the subject area this evening. You'll notice it is Plat 1, just south of Holly Drive, west of A1A, north of Howell Watkins Middle School, and is to the east of the canal separating Plat 1 and Plat 3. Just a brief background on the area. Plat 1 was the first neighborhood established by our founder, John D. MacArthur, in 1959. It is comprised of mostly single-family residential homes under 2,000 square feet, some multifamily duplexes, and mostly mid-century architecture. There are 14 city-owned roads, approximately 3.75 miles, 8.35 miles of city swale. In 2014, we had so far have had 45 code violations. There are 5 vacant homes currently that we're aware of, and 3 of the 12 fine reductions that were presented before the special magistrate were in Plat 1, and I will get a little bit more into that later on in our presentation. The items of interest that we'll address tonight specifically are code compliance as they pertain to the multifamily duplexes, abandoned homes, median maintenance specific to A1A, MacArthur Boulevard and the Banyan Tree PUD, and Keating Drive near North Lake. We will address swales and canal maintenance as far as landscaping and drainage go, the vacant property located at Ironwood and Holly Drive, and road paving and striping. The map I show you here addresses the code cases that we've had citywide. The yellow dots represent cases in 2013, the red dots in 2014. You will notice that there was a concentration on the last map in the subject area. The enlargement here is Plat 1 from the previous map, and you will see that there were 61 cases in 2013 and 45 cases to date in 2014. What is not shown here is when there have been multiple cases on the same property. It's important to note, I show here again the Plat 1, the concentration, there is a concentration along the multifamily duplex area. However, there are code cases across the city, as you were able to see. When we have a code violation that's observed, the code compliance team makes a strong effort to engage each of the property owners who are willing to entertain us to help talk through and figure out why it is that their property is unable to comply with the city's code. Before we enter into the formal notification process required by Florida statute, Chapter 162 for code enforcement, we do this through a correction request notice. Again, it's an informal process. It is a notice that does go to the owner, but in hopes that we will be able to create a dialogue with that owner and maybe make them part of that compliance solution instead of having to proceed with that formal documentation in Chapter 162. This same process we use with our business community. When they are in violation, whether it's a property maintenance issue, a land development regulation, a sign issue, a business tax receipt, they too are offered a correction request unless it's something that's a life safety health issue which must be addressed immediately, and a correction request at that point is not appropriate. These are just some before and after pictures of two properties, particularly in Plat 1. To the left is a property on Balsam, and to the right is a property on Azalea. These are two properties where they received correction requests, they received notice of violation. One went to notice of hearing, the one on the left. It actually was a bank foreclosure. Eventually it was sold, and as you can see, it turned out all right. And to the right, there was no bank foreclosure involved. It's the same owner. They just needed a little reminder and cleaned up the property and made a very nice driveway and removed their recycle bins. I mentioned fine reductions previously in the background slide, and I brought that up because I think it's important to the total picture of what's happening across the city, and particularly in Plat 1. 3 of the 12 fine reductions that were sent to the special magistrate happened in Plat 1. So when we have a code violation case that continues and an owner is unable to comply or fails to comply, whether it's an abandoned property, an investor who's not kept up with the property, or maybe it's just an owner who just can't make it happen, fines start to assess and they grow very quickly. As you can imagine, buying a home naturally is not an easy process. Well, when you've got one that's got a burdened title because there's liens on it, it makes it even harder. So we work with sellers and buyers who are interested in bringing these properties back to life. They want to sell their property, they've got a lien on it, and they want to find a way to make that title slightly less burden. So when they propose to us a fine reduction through the special magistrate process, that is one that we can collect expenses that have been put out on the property by the city. We are more than happy to make that recommendation to the special magistrate so that we can turn that property around and be a part of that community solution. This is a home that is at one of the main gateways at Lighthouse Drive. It has been on the books for code compliance since 2009. It was an abandoned home. It was a bank foreclosure. Code compliance made many, many visits to this house. And until recently in July, the home was what we thought completely neglected. A seller came to us. They requested a fine reduction. Fines had amassed beyond $20,000. We accepted much less. And now you can see that they're trying to make improvements. And this is just since July, the after picture. I'll address medians at this point, where what you see here is Plat 1 to the bottom left, A1A in the center, and Promenade Plaza at the top. This median in particular has many maintenance parties that are responsible for keeping up the medians and the shoulders here. We've got the FEC along the railroad. We've got development orders that were put in place with commercial entities that required them to maintain medians and shoulders. And then we also have the FDOT along A1A who's required to maintain this. When code compliance notices that the area is getting out of control, we do monitor the area and we do issue correction requests and notices of violations as necessary to bring things back into compliance. Development orders are not unusual for us, where we assign the maintenance responsibility to a commercial entity or a POA. This is also true at the Keating Drive and North Lake area. You'll see pictures on the left here. The top one was taken in June, the bottom one in July, but you'll also notice my dots. The dots are on the property responsible for maintaining the Keating Drive North Lake median shoulder area per a resolution. They have been in violation before for not maintaining, but as you can see, they have responded. We continue to monitor this area as well. Another one would be MacArthur Boulevard and the Banyan Tree PUD. The map on the left identifies the median area, which has been assigned through resolution to a POA. You'll also notice there is some staining on the pavers adjacent to that median, and we have issued a notice of violation requesting that that the staining be removed, that the area be pressure washed. And that correction request or notice of violation is still out. I believe they have until the end of August to comply. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our Public Services and Emergency Management Director, Mr. David Reyes.
Good evening, Council. At this point, I'm going to provide you some update on some of the maintenance activities of the public services as relate to the Plat 1 area. I will start with our canal maintenance program. Our canal maintenance program includes our aquatic vegetation control. Our aquatic vegetation program is done through an outside contract, which includes monthly treatments all of our canal systems throughout the city. Efforts to control the plant growth are ongoing, especially this time of the year due to the weather and the rainy seasons. As a result, additional treatment has been done to the different areas in order to mitigate and control this situation. The Plat 1 area actually 2 weeks ago received the second treatment for this month because of the conditions, and we're seeing significant improvements to that area. Our mowing activities done internally, we currently maintain approximately 15 miles of canals on a 30-day cycle, and included in our maintenance program is the vacant property located in the corner of Ironwood and Holly Drive, which is, on the letter was Lighthouse, but that's the corner property that we're referring to. We also do general inspections of all of our canal system on a regular basis, and we do repairs on a needed basis. This program is designed to protect and maintain the stormwater master plan improvement that was recommended by the Blue Ribbon panel, some of you that were here during that time, and was approved by council in 2003. That was a $5 million loan to improve all of our canal systems citywide. The map you see in front of you is all of the canal systems that are owned and maintained by the city, and the highlighted area is the subject area. And this picture represents the conditions of the canal prior to the improvements, and the bottom picture shows what the canal looks like after all the improvements, and they still look like that. This area right here is actually a repair that was done on the Thompson Canal, which is actually the Plat 1 area, and this is just looking north of the Lighthouse Bridge into the Thompson Canal. I'll talk a little bit about our swell system. In the Plat 1 area, the swell system is designed to serve as a stormwater conveyance system. Therefore, this limited landscape that we allowed into the swell system. And typically, it is anticipated the standing water will recede within 7 days. That's kind of the rule that we have used and the South Florida Water Management uses. So after a heavy rainstorm, if the water recedes within 7 days, the system is working the way it's supposed to work and function. We inspected all of the swells within the Plat 1 area and noticed that all of them were dry after the rain, which means that they are working as intended. The swells are inspected on an ongoing basis, and we do repairs on as needed basis. These swells are considered part of the front yards, which benefit the homeowners, and is not considered for public access. So if it's in front of your yard, it's not to be used by the public, it's only to use for the residents who live adjacent to that swell. As such, it's been the city's practice to have the property owner maintain and take care of the swell areas, and when they're not maintained, they become part of the code enforcement process as just no different than the front yard. And this is just a picture that kind of shows you a little bit of what the swells look like when they're not in need of repairs. The one to the right where you see the water standing, that's water standing over 7 days. And this is what the swell looks like. And if you notice on the previous slide, you see the obstructions in the middle, some of the trees that are very close to the low part of the swell. And in this one, you don't see any obstructions. That's the goal. That's why the limitation on the landscape for the swell system. In 2002, the city abandoned the windshield survey approach, which relied on visual inspections and individual objectives opinion, and established a road paving program that's based on a scientific approach. The city obtained the services of Infrastructure Management System, which conducted a study of all of the roads within the city. And the company uses technology that is designed to perform deflection testing, determine the surface conditions of the road, and estimate the pavement structural capacity. The study gives each road a number which is based on the structural conditions on the road, and it rates anywhere between 0 to 100. With anything lower than 40 is a road that could be considered total reconstruction, and anything over 80 is a road is considered to be in good conditions with a life expectancy of up to 10 years. The road paving is determined based on the rating that is given to each road and the available funds that we have. So we just take those numbers and we start working our way up to the ones with the lower numbers and work our way up to it. And the whole program is funded out of gas tax dollars, has never been funded out of general fund. And currently we have been budgeting $400,000 a year to continue the programs. I looked into the report for the Plat 1 area, and most of the roads in that area are over the numbers. Currently, we're working on roads that are rated anywhere between 60 to 65. Roads within the Plat 1 area are higher numbers than that, with the exception of Riverside, there's about 67. So that one should be completed within the next 2 years, because we're working our way up again, and we're still within the 60, 65 numbers, working our way up. This map shows you the historical information of all the road paving. And this other map just shows you all the roads have been paved within the Plat 1 areas. You can see we're probably about 40%. And like I mentioned prior, the Riverside Drive, if it's done within the next 2 years, will be the portion to start over in Holly Drive, which is to the north. And it loops all the way around it and comes around back to Holly Drive. So it's a large portion of that section of the road that will be completed. All the other roads have much higher numbers. So, and lastly, I want to talk about a stormwater management plan. An implementation of a stormwater management plan was approved by Council June 2014. This new program will provide a complete system mapping, a conditions analysis, and a maintenance and repair plan of the entire stormwater system citywide. This is something that we're actually working on it right now at the time. All structures within the Plat 1 area have been already located and mapped, and right now the firm is actually working on the conditions analysis. The program is scheduled to be completed around February 2015. Once it's completed, then we'll move into phase 2 of the program, which is the implementation, and we'll start then working on repairs depending on what the conditions of the system, which we'll find out through the program. Currently, we have $500,000 budget for a year for the next 5 years, and this program is also budgeted out of gas taxes, not out of general fund. And with that, I would answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions of staff? None? Okay.
Very good, thorough job. I appreciate the update. Obviously, we've talked about many things, but when we talk about swales, I know they're meant to hold water, obviously. And I guess they're also meant, when the ground is saturated, they're going to have standing water, of course, until the area percolates. However, there are areas, and I did do a drive through, where in some cases the swales are not being maintained. Do we monitor that? Because the swales are not being maintained, they might have planting in them or that type of a situation. Do we then cite those homes that are not maintaining the swale so that the swales can do the job of drainage?
We do monitor those areas. There are some areas that still have some landscape that over the years encroach
Right,
into
exactly.
the swale area. And it's always been a challenge, so, and it's been the council policy. We did it when we worked on our canal restoration program, to where as long as we can achieve the drainage and the swells doing the job, we basically just allow the swell system. But if it comes an issue to where we extend a 7-day, and then we need to come in and do repairs, then when we do repairs, we remove all the landscapes. So we kind of work with residents. A lot of them are really proud of their plant material, and if it's draining, then as long as it's doing the work,
Right.
it's okay. But if it becomes that the city needs to go in and do major repairs, then it's been the policy at that time that the city will remove any encroachment into that swale area.
And then it seems like there's a lot of issues where the duplexes are on Holly Drive. It seems like that's a very intense area where you're having a lot of issues. I know that we had a long time ago, and I don't know when it was, but along Military Trail at one time, there was some areas and the houses were not being maintained properly, and I think it was a grant that the city went through to clean it all up, and they did a very good job, I think.
The circular
in-
driveways and stuff that were put in,
Right, they
yeah,
were
along Military.
added, and I think there was a lot of painting that occurred, just a lot of upkeep that was not being done, and, you know, I guess through that process, it made that whole area look so much better. I guess this is something along those lines, because when I drove by that whole area, I guess it's just has not been maintained for a long period of time. What are the issues, the majority of the issues that you're finding?
Well, you have 11 red dots for 2014, so there's
Right.
not
And
too
there
many
are
good
more.
things. Yeah.
There are some that will have multiple dots, like I said,
Right,
which you
right.
won't see on this map. There are multiple challenges here. These are properties that have aged with them.
Right.
They are not the high-end complexes that we're building in the city now. They do, so the rent is lower. The owners often are not local, so our engagement with them is by way of mail. They receive rent, we send mail. They do get fined. It's a long process sometimes, the code enforcement process. I do have some examples, just not with me in this picture, in this slideshow, where some have responded. We sometimes have language barriers that we encounter where owners or renters just do not understand, and we'll bring in some of our other employees who do speak the language to try and help us get through those. But it's a multitude of issues. It's not just one.
I mean, this might be more of a legal question for Max, but in terms of, you know, if you have a unit going into foreclosure, or you have a unit owner who's ignoring us, and you've got driveways or roads need to be fixed, or something painted, I mean, does it ever get to the point, instead of just fining them and throwing on $20,000 onto a house, why don't we make the renovation and then lien it for that amount? I mean, to get the improvement done or get their attention. We know if it's in foreclosure, it's eventually going to sell, and we'll eventually get paid back for that, but there's got to be some way to kind of do something a little bit more proactive to work on the dots and get rid of some of those issues. So,
Many of the multi-family duplexes are not in foreclosure. It is a lot of the single-family homes that are in the foreclosure process.
but the duplexes are mostly investor,
Yes, sir.
and they just tend to ignore us.
Tend to.
Well, they won't ignore a lien or something going on there.
Are we making
Yes.
headway
Yeah.
at all, like through the code enforcement process? Are we making any
We do.
headway? Is
We
it
do.
looking
It is-
positive now that the economy is picking up a little bit?
I mentioned the fine reductions. That's a
Right.
wonderful sign in the code compliance world because it says there's an interest renewed in the area. There's people who are interested in buying some of these homes that have been on the market for a long time. That helps us. I do have many examples where good things are happening in Plat One. They're just not all on this presentation, and I have
That's
plenty of
okay.
pictures I can offer. It's up to the owners a lot of times. Some of them in this neighborhood, there are a lot of original owners still. It's a population that is on a fixed income sometimes, and they are limited in what they can do. When a home is homesteaded, it limits what we're able to do to a property. We can continue to lien, and maybe Max can speak a little bit to that in regards to what a foreclosure does to the code enforcement process, or excuse me, a homestead exemption does to a code enforcement process.
But you can't go paint a house if you don't have permission. You can't just go on someone's property and say, I'm painting
We
the
do
house and
require-
fixing
yes,
your
ma'am.
pavement.
We
'Cause
do
you don't-
require an order from the special magistrate in order to go on a property. We do go onto properties and abate them when they are life safety health threat issues. We try not to go onto properties that are occupied. Typically, they're the vacant homes where we've gone in and abated properties, grass cutting, and we bring them to the basic minimum standards of the property maintenance code.
I know you've dropped things in pools,
Yes, sir.
chemicals in pools to try and, because that's a mosquito problem too.
Yes, sir. When we notice there's an unsecure pool, we will lock it, we will block a gate up so that it's secure for the safety of the neighborhood. If we know it's mosquitoes, we'll drop the tabs.
And to
yes.
Bert's question, we do file liens when we mow yards. And
Yes, sir, we do.
I'm familiar with some of those also. Max, I'll go ahead. I have a couple of things.
That's all right. I'm just trying to figure out a quicker process to get people to
It's a
move.
slow, I think
It is a slow
probably the biggest sore is the burned down house on Holly.
Well,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, I know you've been working on that. How long ago was that cited? It was months ago.
Many
been a
months
year.
ago.
Yeah, at
They
least a
actually
year.
came before the special magistrate in July. They have resolved their financial issues according to all three parties, the bank, the contractor, and the insurance company. He is proceeding. He did pull some inspections, which passed in July. So progress is starting on that house. He was ordered to pull his dumpster in order to empty the dumpster because we thought that was a life safety health threat issue, as well as cut the backyard because it was extremely overgrown. He complied. When they
I know
complied.
sometimes it just takes a while because it's a civil process, not a criminal process.
Correct.
So it takes a little bit longer. My question probably goes back to you, Dave, but it deals with, sometimes the swales underneath driveways have culverts. Who's generally responsible for the maintenance of that culvert, making sure it's clear and hasn't collapsed? It's red. No, there you go.
Okay, I'm having technical difficulties over here with this phone. The culverts will be the maintenance responsibility of the residents unless we are, again, doing a swell restoration, then we would handle any issues at the time of the restoration, and we normally put the improvements back. We try not to have those unless it's extremely necessary. So some of those culverts just showed up over the years. I'm sure they're probably over the weekend or whatever the reasons were. So we just monitor the swells, and as long as we still meet the standards, that we basically just continue to work with them. But if we were to go back to do the improvements, unless it's necessary, we would not put culverts because they tend to restrict the flow and create more problems.
One more question. If we think there's a kind of a health code violation or issue there, do we call in like the health department or the county or somebody to come inspect if there's like no AC in a house and there's people living there? I mean, are there other ways around this to get more people involved to try to put pressure to get something done if we feel like it needs to be done?
We do communicate with other agencies,
Okay.
and typically they are very helpful. But we also have the ability to request interior inspections if we suspect there's an issue that needs to be resolved. The owner has to allow us in unless there's a court injunction made that permits us to go in the property, and they don't always allow us in.
I bet.
Just as a follow-up, I guess you deal with Seacoast too, because sometimes they're shutting off water, which means they shut off the sewage.
Yes, and if I may add to your point, even with our police department, we've done a lot of cases. If you know, I used to be in the code enforcement area in the past, and we did several cases to where the police department was called late at night for properties that were completely just the damage to the property inside the property, and through our police department, we immediately contacted county health department, and it was a group of people, and we did several cases where it took a complete interior renovations of the house. So we have worked with not only external agencies, but even our police department has referred a lot of cases to us, and we've done a lot of cases that way.
Okay, Marcy?
So this is typically, we have to abide through, we have to go through and correct these issues through code enforcement, which there are statutory requirements and timelines in which we have to meet. We have we cannot change that, correct?
Correct.
And obviously, we're making some headway, but there's no other way to fix these issues besides getting a grant and doing what we did on Military Trail?
Well, it depends on the property, as Ansley was making reference to. And when a property is homestead, there's two different homesteads in Florida. There's your homestead tax exemption, and then there's your constitutional homestead. People confuse them. One is typically indicative of the other. If somebody's taking the tax exemption, you would think that that's their homestead. But you have a constitutional homestead, and once that's a residential dwelling, whether it's a duplex, a townhome, or single family, whatever it is, if you own it and it's your homestead, it can't be foreclosed upon except by the mortgage holder or for tax liens. You're not going to be able to, a code enforcement lien is junior to those liens and is prohibited by law to foreclose on it. Now, with the rental properties, particularly duplexes and things like that, typically what will occur, and frequently, we've had this in the past, where you would actually even have on occasion residents complain about about the condition of their unit, and the renter would give us access, and code enforcement was able to go in and inspect it, find that there were health, safety, and welfare violations, and we would cite them, and there have been cases where we've been able to go in and make repairs or do things and then lien the property. When a property is not homesteaded, as these rental properties, if you obtain an ongoing fine and that lien starts to build up, once it reaches there's no hard and fast rule, but it has to reach a monetary level that justifies it. And then we can institute a foreclosure proceeding on that rental property, which if we've not been getting response from the owner at that point, that almost certainly gets a response from them, because then they don't want to lose their property. There's other ways that you can go about forcing compliance. Once you get a lien on the property, we can go to circuit court, we can sue to have that lien converted to a judgment, and then seek to collect the judgment. That's typically more valuable or more useful tool as it relates to a homestead property, because since I can't foreclose on the homestead property, we go to circuit court, we'd sue to have the lien converted to a judgment, and then you start seizing personal effects like automobiles, any money, bank accounts. There's things that you can do that way. It is a more laborious process, and unfortunately the short answer is yes, they do take time, and one of the reasons it does take so much time is because the Florida legislature established all these procedures in Chapter 162, because you're dealing with something very sensitive here. If someone's property rights in their home, and yes, it can have a very negative impact on the neighbors, and we work very hard to be very sensitive to that. The staff puts out a lot of effort, but we also have to balance the interest as far as making sure we stick to the procedures and follow them to the letter to make sure that we're not unjustifiably depriving somebody potentially of a property interest. So it is a balancing act, and sadly there is no panacea, there's no perfect answer, but it takes a little time, but we have a history of achieving compliance and improving the neighborhoods.
And it takes persistence.
Yes, and you have an incredibly persistent and diligent code enforcement department here.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, Marcy. We had I think you were involved with it, Bert. We seized a house on Balsam, I think, a couple of years ago, and we knocked it down.
The house bill.
Yeah, so it is possible. That's the one that had a tree growing out of the house, right?
Yeah,
Roof
how
out,
long
all that?
that process took 3 years. I mean, it was.
Well, it took 3 years until we got involved. Once David was working on it, when I first started doing, when I was just prosecuting the code enforcement cases here, and I think it took us about 6 months after I got involved, and then we had it declared an unsafe structure. We went through the notice process, and then we got it done, and we got it demoed. It's not cheap to do, but that was an abandoned property, and we bent over backwards to make sure we were following all the proper statutory requirements and notice requirements. I never worked so hard to try and find out who owned a piece of property in my life, and I don't think we ever really did get to the bottom line of
Was
who
he in
owned
jail?
it.
Was he in jail, I think, or something?
That's the best we came up with. We noticed it like crazy. We published, we sent it everywhere, and then finally we had finally satisfied all the notice requirements, and then we were able to demo it. But it did languish for a long time, but then once we just hadn't been presented a solution yet, and we worked together and found one and got it done.
And I guess my final comment is in regards to medians and streetscapes. I think that throughout our city, and we have medians that are beautiful and lushly landscaped, and also not so much. We have areas that have not been maintained, just not consistent in general, and that's obviously seen in Plat 1 and throughout all of the subdivisions in our city, not just Plat 1. Also along some of our right-of-ways too, because we have property owners that will maintain and property owners that won't, which you pointed out. And I think that we need to be cognizant about that and possibly come up with a plan that makes our medians a little bit more consistent, and maybe a beautification plan where it's really amazing how when I drove through the streets that were already paved, newly paved, how much nicer they looked because they were newly paved. It was like a fresh coat of paint, even though it was on the street. But I really think that there could be a lot of benefit with paving, drainage, and just some minor beautification or median attention, let's just say, in some of the areas. Maybe we could consider that in the future.
Okay. Good point. All right, anything else for staff? Okay, Mr. Martino, Steve?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for the record, my name, excuse me, Steve Martino, 3240 Meridian Way South, Palm Beach Gardens. Before I get started with my comments to the council, I'd like to thank, again, Ansley and David for taking a tour with me recently and their time and attention to the matter, and of course their presentation tonight. The mayor mentioned that I had some follow-up questions to your responses to my July 11th letter. Some of those questions you answered tonight. You answered parts of others, and some remain unanswered, so I look forward to that response as well. I come before you tonight to offer my thanks. On July 10th, I offered some comments and concerns that I want to make sure that we're clear on. The thrust of dealt with the Holly Drive portion of Plat 1 to include city-owned properties and swales within Holly Drive. Duplexes, as we heard it tonight, are tougher nut to crack, but definitely need some attention. This is an area of the city that has, over the past 10 to 15 years, continued to decline and deteriorate. So I can appreciate the time it takes to bring this to the attention of the homeowners, but 10, 15 years, I think it's time for some action. And again, I appreciate the efforts up until this point tonight. I've already noticed some homeowners maybe taking the initiative on their own on some of the duplexes as I drove over tonight. But on July 10th, I offered some comments and concerns to the council regarding the conditions of Plat 1 neighborhood. At the time, I asked the council to take those comments and concerns into consideration and begin to discuss a policy, including budgetary measures, to address the areas of Plat 1 in that neighborhood. I followed up these comments with a letter dated July 11th, further outlining these concerns to include some possible solutions. I would like to thank Councilwoman Tinsley not only for taking the time to respond to my email with a substantive response, but also, as she mentioned tonight, taking that extra step to go out there and see the neighborhood for herself. I appreciate your time and attention. It means a lot. I received an email response from Councilman Russo. Obviously, he's not here tonight, but for the record, I'd like to thank him for that response. He said my questions and comments would be addressed, and some of them, again, were addressed tonight, so I thank him as well. Finally, I received a response from Mayor Permoso. He, too, indicated he would share that July 11th letter with the council and Mr. Ferris. Clearly, he had done that. Bert, thank you for your time and your efforts and the follow-up meeting, and I look forward to continuing to work with you all in the future and whatever plans you come up with to address these concerns. And again, thank you for your time and attention.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Nothing else on that issue. Okay. Let's move on to items of resident interest and board committee reports, and we'll start with David.
Well, I'm going to steal Marcy's thunder and say we went to National Night Out last night. It was well attended. We got to see Trauma Hawk, motorcycle demonstrations, SWAT demonstrations, a car that did a rollover constantly that threw a dummy out. And you'd have to be a dummy to ride in that car because it didn't go forward, just went round and round in a circle. But there was a well-attended, lot of kids out there, which was real nice. I spent some time with Andrea Santa, one of our fire employees, and she was giving out those little red fire hats like crazy. There must have been about 50 of them that were given out, so it was a well-done program. Chief, you did a nice job with that, and look forward to seeing what you do next year. And just as a kind of a note, you know, a couple of months ago, I went over to Tarpon Springs just for a weekend vacation, and they had their armored car out there, and our armored car is much better than their armored car. Oh. I also attended the Water Resource Task Force meeting, which is interesting since Calorie Judge is involved in the C-51 basin, and that was the major course of discussion there. And, you know, just to be brief, I did have a couple of concerns about the C-51 basin, one of which is they're planning on spending about $12 million, which is a lot cheaper than what they spent for the L8, to purchase the basin and the property rights, they being the water utilities. But my concern is, and I've asked for some numbers to be drawn up, is the C-51 is, like the L8, is a mining pit, which means that they have to do some type of reclamation under the federal laws, which means that if it's not used for some type of water storage, which was beneficial to the public, then Palm Beach Aggregates will have to make it safe, which means they have to fill in portions of it. And I believe that the cost of that is going to be really, really high. So I think that if nothing else, we should be given that property, as a way for them to take a mining liability and make it into a positive benefit for the community. So I've actually asked the staff for the Water Resource Task Force to look into some of those numbers to abandon this so that we don't pay. The other thing too is because of the way the C-51 has been set up, it does not benefit Palm Beach Gardens or communities to the north. So, they've been trying, as you know, they've been trying to get us to participate financially, and I have been tried to be a bulkhead against doing that, since we're not going to receive a benefit from the C-51 basin. All that water's going south. And my final concern is, to save money, which is a good thing, they plan on hooking the L8 into the C-51 together to pump out of just one of those basins. The C-51 has some chemical problems. The L8 basin is for supplying the Loxahatchee River with water during the dry season to make sure that it makes its minimum flows. You cannot take C-51 water and send it to the Loxahatchee River because it's too high in nutrients. So I had some concerns, and I want to make absolutely sure that any water that we send, which goes down the M8 basin through Grassy Waters, is clean enough to go into the Loxahatchee River and clean enough to go into the into West Palm Beach. The water catchment area in Grassy Waters is the West Palm Beach water supply system before it goes to Lake Magnolia. So those were some of my concerns. Another meeting that I attended was the League of Cities meeting, which was held here at Florida Power and Light. Items that we handled were, we talked about the Palm Beach County Wellfield Ordinance, and the League went ahead and recommended approval of that ordinance, which approves new maps. The good news on this is at one point, the county was going to try and get the water utilities and the municipalities to pay for the implementation of this ordinance. They have since backed out of that. We prepared a letter and authorized the executive director to prepare a letter for the Palm Beach County Food Bank. And we got a Palm Tran update from Wendy Harrison of Jupiter and where they're going. So with that, I'll pass it on to Marcia. Can I do that?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to steal your prerogative here,
That's
Bert.
fine.
Thank you. Speaking of Wendy Harrison, she called to let me know of some certain areas in our city that are in dire need of bus shelters, and she read that in the paper, which I appreciate her calling. Well, I guess too bad Joe's not here because I have a short list. I attended the North Chamber Business Before Hours, where we heard an update from our legislatures. I attended the Realtors of the Palm Beaches Luncheon this past month, where I was asked to welcome all of their guests and provide them with a little update of recent developments, approvals, and what's upcoming. I also attended the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council hearing this past month, where the freight workshop was postponed to September because of DOT and coordination efforts with them. However, as we usually do each month, we spoke about All Aboard Florida and the fact that there will be a tremendous amount of competition for the matching grants for quiet zones, which obviously we probably figured that because everyone wants quiet zones in their areas, and they recommended that we work jointly with our neighboring municipalities or the neighboring municipalities and the county to obtain the grants from the federal grants, I guess you could say, together. They thought that that would be most advantageous for all of us in order to obtain the most amount of money. The FRA is looking at quiet zones on a county-wide basis, according to what we've learned, and versus just municipalities alone, because the smaller quiet zones are very much harder to establish. Who's working on this topic from our staff now? Yeah, or All Aboard in general? Jamie is, okay.
Jamie's coordinating that with the city engineer and finance.
Okay. And just because I want to pass on some information once I get it to whomever I need to. Perfect. Yep, absolutely. And Sebastian has gone through an FRA baseline calculation and established their own baselines as it relates to the inspections. According to them, it's important to establish the AAF, or All Aboard Florida group, because they're going to be maintaining baselines. And they had said that when the speed changes from 35 miles an hour to 110, the baseline drastically changes, so the calculations drastically change, and they recommended that we establish our own baselines because it would be beneficial to us. They feel that All Aboard Florida, they need to obviously make us whole, or pay for the net impact, I guess you would say. I'm not exactly how they went about doing this, but there are some people from Sebastian that said that they would be happy to talk to any of us and any of the municipalities to help us go through that process, so we're not reinventing the wheel, and I thought that was nice, and we can do that. We had a Park and Rec Advisory Board meeting where we discussed the proposed increase, the family fee charges, along with the increased charges, obviously, to make us whole. We're working together with the Rec Advisory Board and the PBGYAA to come up with a solution that's amenable to all of us, and I'll discuss this at the end of the agenda under items for council discussion. And we did go to National Night Out. It was wonderful. Kudos to everyone that helped make that event a success, which it truly was. A lot of fun, a lot of great things, including the car that people had to, it was like a competition where everyone had to go look at all the clues, and a lot of prizes were given out, and I think that was one of the most popular things there, besides the helicopter and the police dog that attacked and the loud noises that came from that area of the...
Flashbangs, yeah.
Right, exactly. And the best part of the month, I think, one of the best, I should say, is where I delivered a truck full of school supplies and forgotten soldier supplies on behalf of the entire city council to the giving camp. And I'm so proud of the camp participants and leaders and program directors for such a wonderful program. I want to thank all of them from the bottom of my heart. They really have done a wonderful job in collecting so many supplies for such good causes. And it was really
Very
a
nice.
great thing to see.
Good.
I can.
Is that your short list, or you got more?
That's it.
Oh, okay. We'll skip Joe, because that was a long one there, so we'll go to Eric.
She took it all, and I was out last night too, celebrating this wonderful event. We did it. City staff always does a great job with all of these events, and I have to thank them for all of their what they did to make our city shine. Frankly, it's really nice to see that coordination and how well it works. That's basically it. I just want to remind everybody that next month school opens, so be very, very careful out there. There are going to be a lot more kids waiting at school bus stops, so be aware of it and just be careful. Because sometimes it's early in the morning when these kids are there, you don't see them. So just be careful.
Oh, yeah, I want to pass along my thanks to everybody for National Night Out. That really was a cool event last night. And hopefully we're going to do it here again. I really like it at City Hall. I think it's a great venue here. And we've got a lot of good people. The Trauma Hawk was pretty cool coming in. So a lot of good activity last night for the residents and the people. So thank you for everybody involved and all the volunteers as well. David, Eric, and I went to the Amanda Buckley Scholarship Dinner a couple weeks ago, I think it was, at J.J. Muggs. They do it every year. This year, again, they gave out 5 scholarships, $1,000 apiece, to 5 young ladies who are graduating and going on to college. Not necessarily playing softball, but I think most of them are. But they just... Yeah. but just 2 of them were actually, or 3 of them were playing at a national tournament in Omaha, so they couldn't be at the dinner because they're such great players on these travel teams that they were out there in Omaha at a World Series event. So we're always thankful to do that and be involved in that event each year. And a baseball update, can't go on without that, but our 8-year-olds here at Gardens, who won the state tournament here that we host every year, went to Florence, Alabama last week and won the Southeast Regionals. They were 7-0, and believe it or not, they beat Okehili here from West Palm Beach in the finals. And they also beat Okehili here in the finals for the state tournament. So there's no need to go out of Florida, just bring them all here every year, and we'll just have those 2 play and beat each other up. But I think the 8-year-olds won it last year too. So the nucleus of the talent that we have from T-ball to rookie to the little leagues is really great in our city, and it's represented all over Florida, if not the Southeast U.S., as these teams branch out and play in some of these regional tournaments. So congratulations to our 8s, and great job for the league, the YA, and representation of our city. So great job. And that's all I have. So let's move on to the city manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple items to bring to your attention here real quickly. Of note, I'd like to recognize the Palm Beach Gardens Police Department. They had a summer conference of the Police Chiefs Association. They won the prestigious Rocky Pomerantz Excellence in Policing Award, which is given to larger agencies in the state. It was the award was in recognition of the department's Forget Me Not program, which was designed to prevent young children from being left in hot cars. And as you'll recall, Karen Cobb, receiving the award here with Commander Shannon, designed this unique hang tag in order to bring attention to parents as they're leaving their vehicle that the child is in the car. So, it's a great program with a great goal, which is the safety of children. And we thank the police department and Karen Cobb for coming up with this innovative thing. For those of you that don't know who Rocky Pomerantz was, you have to be an old geezer like me. He was the police chief of Miami Beach for years and years and years, nationally recognized as a law enforcement leader. And I had the pleasure of working in Miami Beach when Rocky was there, solving all kinds of crimes. I think he was also the one, his department was involved in catching Murph the Surf and the Hope Diamond, was it? One of those diamonds. Anyway, you have to watch old movies now to know who Murph the Surf was, but I was there. I was there for that one. Also, and again, congratulations to Karen, congratulations to the police department for that recognition. It's really great. Also, would like to inform you that on July 22, the United States Tennis Association announced that the City of Palm Beach Gardens Tennis Center was one of 12 winners of its 33rd annual USTA Facilities Award Program. This program is established to stimulate high standards in tennis facilities. And among other things, the chief executive of the USTA made a comment, and among other things, it was a quote, "It is outstanding tennis facilities like Palm Beach Gardens Tennis Center that helps us grow the game at the grassroots level. For that reason, and so much more, we're proud to recognize the Palm Beach Gardens Tennis Center for its ongoing impact and contribution to the sport of tennis." This is 12 winners out of the entire United States, and we're very proud to have won this award. And I would like to recognize those people who are responsible for this. The hard work of Laura Schubert, our Recreation Director. Please stand. Justin Lucas. Justin Lucas, our Operations Manager. Wendy Tatum is the Tennis Operations Coordinator. And Bill McDermott, Recreation Tennis Supervisor. Again, this is a nationally recognized and sought-after award. Our tennis facility and programs are second to none, and we're going to try to make it better this year with our CIP even. So, thanks again. I'd like to bring to your attention also, recently we had a fire rescue recruit class 2 weeks in June go through their program of both academic and very physical skills training. We had a TV reporter from Channel 25, Stephanie Brzezinski. She was sort of embedded in this group and went through the training with them. They filmed and then aired this event on July 24th with a follow-up on the 25th in the morning. And if you would just indulge us, I think it's very worthwhile. It speaks highly of our fire rescue personnel. Can't say enough good things about the fire rescue people that provide services. But to give you a little insight as to what the training consists of and the impression of a newspaper reporter in the event that you haven't seen this. So let's see, roll the film, please.
It was probably the hardest week and a half that I spent with them of my life. It's not just turn on a hose, spray water. Is it supposed to be this tight? Firefighter 61 to Officer 61, we have a wet hydrant. Probably should have took that off. Whew. The jaws of life is incredibly noisy. It's heavy. It is so heavy.
See this here? That's what we didn't want. We didn't want that to happen.
Is all this easy?
No.
It's a tremendous amount of work.
There you go. Good job. Get that nozzle somewhere where you can control this nozzle.
Oh my gosh.
See that?
Yeah.
Different, huh?
So hard.
All right, shut it down.
It's so hot in all the equipment, and you add on that air pack, and now you're talking about climbing 100 feet on a 65-degree angle.
Just face forward anyhow. You continuously climb, right? You afraid of heights?
I'm not going to answer that question. The height didn't bother me. I thought for sure the height would get to me. Not at all. It was the pain in my legs. My calves were burning. My quads were burning.
Oh, I might need to take a break here.
I was the last section of the ladder, and I had to stop. I was in pain and agony, I think, at that point. And then I thought about 9/11. Some of those guys climbed 100 stories. 100 stories. I was climbing 9 to 10 stories. If they could climb 100 stories, I was going to get to the top of that ladder. I'm stuck.
I think I'm alive.
Just get this off of me. I am proud of myself for climbing the ladder truck. It's a great view if you can get to the top.
Oh, look, there's downtown.
One of the things firefighters have to be really aware of is the rollover. That's when, like, you see the dark black smoke, and that is all combustible, and that'll literally explode.
If there's any issues again, if there's any problems, let the instructor know. We'll bring you to the back of the room.
All right, let me see your hands. Put your hands up.
I was in the back, the very back, closest to the exit.
Okay, you stay over here, but don't lean on the wall.
Got it.
And the heat slowly crept forward. The flames were over our head. And at first I remember thinking, okay, this isn't so bad when it got a little bit smoky. Then it got thicker and it got thicker. You know, you see in the movies and you see on TV, the firefighters can talk to each other when they're in a firefighting situation. They can see each other through the smoke. That's not true at all. The only little bit of vision that they have is that thermal imaging camera. Everything else is by feel. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how these men and women go into burning buildings and fight fires in the pitch black. It's incredible. My heart rate was through the roof. I couldn't wait to get out of there.
Take your gloves off.
Don't take anything off. Hands out, right here.
We're only in there 10 minutes.
That was 10 minutes?
That was only 10
I felt like 10 years.
Are you good?
Yeah, no, I'm good now that I'm out here.
All right, good.
See you later. I learned throughout this whole experience that there are two kinds of people in this world. Those that rescue and those that need rescuing. I'm the kind of person that needs rescuing.
Very good. Good job.
You're watching WPBF 25 News Mornings.
It was probably the hardest week and a half that I spent with them of my life. Fire Rescue.
Yeah, we showed you a glimpse last night, and there she is now with some of the firefighters who trained her live in our studio. Stephanie.
Hey, good morning. I am here with Lieutenant
I'm sorry, we have a-
Marker,
there it
Markle,
is.
Lieutenant DJ Miner, and the rookies are in the back, Damian, Dustin, and Zach. Thank you so much for being here this morning. So I have to ask the rookies, how's it going now that you're official firefighters?
It's going fantastic, Stephanie. It's like a dream come true. You know, it's still hard to believe that it's even happening.
I know.
Thank you.
Trust me, it's hard to believe I went through all that when I look back at the video. And I know, first of all, thank you so much for letting me tag along. You guys were so supportive throughout the entire process. What surprised you the most about how I did? I was curious to what you were really thinking. So now's your chance. Did I do okay?
You did great inside the can down at Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. We went down there. It takes a lot to go inside of there. A lot more training and a lot more understanding of fire behavior. You went in there, you hung out with the guys, you understood. I heard the segment last night about how the fire rolls over. You had a little understanding of it's not the movies.
Yeah,
Inside the
absolutely,
movies,
it
you
is
said
not.
last night was kind of, they can see each other. You found out firsthand if we didn't have the thermal imaging camera, can't see much in there.
And that's what surprised me the most. I really didn't expect it to be as difficult, I suppose, as it actually is. And that's part of the reason that we did this piece, to show viewers, what you guys go through on a daily basis. What do you hope when people watch this story, they take away from it?
That these three gentlemen behind me and people around the nation, they get into this job as not just a everyday 9-to-5 routine job, but as a career, that they're here to help men and women throughout the United States, that when we're called upon, it takes a good heart and a basic understanding of human behavior of how we do our job.
So many elements, from the science, the math, how to deal one-on-one and interact with people, just going into the burning buildings and all the different variables in place. I literally, it opened my eyes, and I hope when people watch the story again online that it opens theirs too. And thank you so much for my honorary badge. I'm sort of semi-official.
And now you are completely official.
Oh my goodness, my helmet!
On behalf of the City of Palm Beach Gardens and Fire Chief Mike Southard, we'd like to present to you your fire helmet. In the career of a firefighter, many things change, many milestones you come across, but the one thing is your first fire helmet. So you can smoke on it for showing that you're in the camp.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I want to give all of you hugs before you guys leave here. Thank you so much. This is awesome. I'm even going to put it on. I mean, I'll get helmet head, but that's okay.
There you go.
It still smells like the fire. Yeah. Remember, you can watch the entire piece on our website. Just go to WPBF.com.
And special recognition to Chief Mike Southard. Thank you very much for the training, all those fine young men and women out there for the Fire Rescue Department, doing an excellent job, and we thank you for that, Mike. Okay, in addition to that, next would be to let you all know that there will be on September 11th a remembrance ceremony at Christ Fellowship Church to share in the memory of the families and the first responders, the police, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel who lost their lives on that infamous day. We will be advertising this more and more. There's a lot of organizations putting this thing together. It will be held in our city, and we will be involved, just to give you a heads up on the date. And speaking of heads up on the date, I want to remind everyone that our next meeting will not be on a Thursday. It will be a Wednesday, September the 3rd at 7 o'clock, which is the first budget reading here in the chambers. The second meeting will be on a Thursday, which is September the 18th, for the second reading of the budget. So once again, Wednesday, September the 3rd, and then again on Thursday, 9/18. We will have that on the website and try to post that so everyone knows about it. I will continue on now with the city manager report regarding the city attorney retention. As you're all aware by now, through the information that's been provided you from the correspondence, that Max Lohman has left the law practice that he was with, and along with Abigail Jornby, his assistant. We were notified by his previous employer and given an opportunity to select who we wanted to continue to be our attorney. For continuity's sake, I made the decision, because we didn't have a council meeting, to continue the current service with the current attorneys that were serving us, given the opportunity for council to make the decision here at the August 7th meeting, so that we wouldn't lose legal representation during that period of time. It is here that I would like to recognize the fact that Max Lohman has been the attorney for 6 years here. Abby has been here for 4 years assisting Max. These are the two attorneys everyone knows and understands and works with in the city. All you have to do, as far as Max is concerned in their work, is to read today's article in the Post about the great job that he's doing with the supervisor of election issue. Also, when you look at some of the work that he's done in the way of the ordinance banning the dogs and cat sale, it's now the ordinance that he's crafted is now being used as a model by everyone in this community and outside this community as a guide for doing the same thing. When you look at the absence of general lawsuits that we do have some lawsuits going on that are covered by insurance. We don't have any general lawsuits, basically because Max is very protective of the city, and given his legal advice, we follow it and we try to stay out of trouble. When you look at the resolution that you guys adopted not too long ago, it indicated in there from finance, we got the fact that he's saving us. If we had stayed on the same track we were on, he's saving us to the tune of about $200,000 a year in legal services. When you look at Max's service with this city, I think you know now how the staff feels about Abby and Max and their value and their support for this staff to keep the machinery of this city running consistently. I think that it would be easy to show the support of the development community and the businesses as well. Max is a professional all the way. He is passionate, I will admit that. But then those of us who love what we're doing, and I'll include myself, are also passionate, sometimes to a fault, I know. But I'll give you this. In totality, Max is the most loyal person that you would ever want on your staff. He's loyal to this council, he's loyal to the staff that he works for, and he's loyal to the citizens here in this city. You have options, of course. This is your decision as to whom you want to serve as your city attorney. First of all, you can approve the fee agreement that Max has proposed. And that fee agreement is a general representation of $175 an hour and $195 for litigation and administrative hearings. The fee does not include any paralegals. They don't have paralegals. So all the work you get from Max and Abigail would be attorney work, no paralegals. So you have the option of approving Max as your city attorney. And you have to, we took a look and tried to do a comparative on rates. Again, at $175 and $195, if you look at Jupiter, they're paying $225 and $90 an hour for paralegal. Royal Palm, which is a Corbett and White client, is paying $190 and $215. They also hire outside attorneys to handle some litigation as well, and you can see the rates there. North Palm, $175, but they also pay $95 per hour legal services, which you know legal services can only do so much, then it has to be reviewed by an attorney and signed by an attorney anyway. Juno Beach, the same, $175 and $95. We move on. Lake Worth, $195, paralegal $95. Lake Park, $190. Boynton Beach, $195, plus they have almost a $16,000 a month retainer. Tequesta, $190 per hour and $210 for litigation. Palm Beach, $250 an hour for general representation. Palm Springs, $199. So as you see, I think that the 2009 rate, which Max is proffering here, which is the same rate that we got in 2009 when the firm was hired, is a fair rate. And I think, as you can see by this, it's extremely competitive. I also want to let you know that an option that you have, of course, is to continue with the Corbett and White firm. The other option would be go for an RFQ. If you choose a Corbett and White firm, there are issues that we need to look at as far as the impact on the relationship with that firm to continue with them. If you choose to go for RFQ, then there are certain issues that have to be met from our procurement process. The council would have, when we did the 2009 RFQ, it took 6 months. This RFQ to be done by the council would require workshops in order to have the council decide what the experience, qualifications, evaluation criteria you want. The council would have to have oral presentations from the firms. Council would be in a position to evaluate, shortlist the firms, get oral presentations from the shortlist, and somehow or other figure out how we can have a meeting and or negotiate terms of choice and then make a final award. This is a fair estimate of the time that it would take to go through the RFQ process. Keep in mind, too, that there are no legal requirements to do an RFQ. It's totally a council discretion who they hire, who you hire as your city attorney. It's in the charter. It's solely up to you. The agenda item has been out in the public for a week now. It's been in the newspaper, this consideration. And so it is as transparent as I can make it at this point. It is my professional opinion, for the stability and the continuity of this organization and providing legal services to the staff and ultimately to this council and ultimately to the citizens that we all serve. It has been and continues to be my recommendation that council hire Max as the city attorney. It's just my recommendation. It is your decision, but for consistency's sake, for stability's sake, we have a good machine running, and I'd like to see it kept running. So with that, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ron. Certainly not an easy decision. I tried to think about this for the past couple weeks and just try to come up with some adjectives about Max. And certainly integrity is a word that I found. Knowledgeable, reliable, confident in his abilities, which is comforting to us as a council and to our residents. Kind of a protector of what he does, and obviously efficient. And my thought process was, first of all, we don't have Councilman Russo here tonight, so that's an issue for me, because whatever happens, I think we should have the majority of us here tonight to talk about it. But I certainly have no inklings about keeping Max on going forward for now. And I think what we should do next month when Councilman Russo comes back is we have another discussion, and then we basically take a vote if we want to do an RFQ, or if we go ahead and continue with the contract Max has, or we have in place with Corbett and White, and move forward. So that's going to be my kind of recommendation. The quality of the work that Max does is never in question. His character is not in question. The question is the process for me. And essentially, he'll have the opportunity, if we decide to do the RFQ, to bid. along with anybody else who wants to get involved in the process. But essentially, I think we need to take that vote next month when we have a full council and make that determination if we continue on with the agreement and let Max inherit it, if you will, with his new firm, or if we go ahead and do the bid process. So that's kind of what I'll throw out tonight for you guys to talk about.
I guess, Bert, one of my concerns would be is we'll have to do something for the next month. So we have to make some determination tonight on where we're going to go.
And my recommendation is to have Max
Or, okay,
continue onward.
sorry.
Right. Sorry, I don't know if I made that clear enough.
You may have, and my ears may be clogged.
You still have water in your ears from the
That's right.
C-18, C-51, all the discussions you were
Exactly.
throwing out.
Well, we don't have to go through, the idea of going through an RFQ to me, let's put it this way, I've given this a lot of thought, and it's a very important decision. And I've actually even gone so far as to talk to another mayor who retained Max's firm who was with Corbett and White, and retained Max's firm, and asked him why he went ahead and did that, and why their council went ahead and made that decision. And I've got to think it never hurts to, I guess, go out for bids, except for it's a lengthy and costly proposition. And I'm not so sure who's out there that we would want instead of Max, so I'm not so sure that we want to go through there. I boil it down to basically three things. One is the price, and I think we're getting a fair price. One is performance, and I think that we're getting good performance. I've only had one issue in the 6 years with Max. I called him up and it was corrected right away. So to me, that was responsiveness. The other thing is, quite frankly, I don't have a problem ever getting a hold of him when I need to get a legal representative, even when it's 9 o'clock at night. So he is there for us, and he's there. The other thing that I think of the performance is the way that he's worked with residents. And I think that he has been excellent with working with residents. At least I get good feedback from the residents saying when he's worked with them. So I think that the price there and the performance are there, which are probably the two major things. And I think the third thing is the pipeline. I wanted to make it 3 Ps. I have to admit it was hard to fit pipeline into this, but we have some issues there in the pipeline that are ongoing issues that we need to make sure that we have continuity, and one of which that we just talked about tonight at great length, which is a great concern. And it seems to me that we're doing a better job today than with Max and his assistant than we've ever done before, and that's code enforcement. Because we have code enforcement is a difficult, because it's a civil process and there's due process, but it seems like Max has been able to streamline some of this and get it so that we're going faster and we're getting better compliance. And of course, my deal with code enforcement is compliance. But we've also got the BJ's Plaza, which Max is in the middle of. We've got our ongoing layer, and that I'm reading off this list. I actually asked staff to prepare this list of the various ongoing things that are going. And I will tell you, as a geologist, and I'm sure this is probably true as an attorney, never been an attorney and never played one on TV, but as a geologist, when you bring someone in, it takes a good 2 to 3 months to get them up to speed minimum, to get them up to speed on what everything is going on, which means that they have to put in hours to get up to speed, which means that there's a cost, plus there's going to be a delay in performance. So if we did bring someone else in, I think that we run into some difficulty. One of the things, too, that I've talked to Max about, and this is an important thing, the biggest legal mess that I think that we've made, and this is an opinion, not factual, this is an opinion, is when, and it's funny, but we have the pictures of it right here. If you take a look at the stainless steel balls up there, the contract was written in such a way by the previous city attorney that we could not go after the manufacturer of those balls when they failed. So we had no legal recourse except to go after the artist who, A, wasn't responsible for the manufacturing of it, and B, didn't have any money to make recompense. And I think that was a major flaw in that contract. And I've talked to Max, and he said that would not have happened under him, and I do believe him. So I'm actually okay with taking the vote tonight, as long as we get 2 other council members to agree with me, taking the vote tonight, because even if Joe was against it, it would still be a 3-2. And I just would like to have the continuity continue on, if everybody is, of course, in agreement. Of course, we'll listen to the other council members.
And I just want to comment again, it's like Billy Bean in the movie Moneyball. It's a process, it's a process, it's a process. And that's how I'm looking at it. Max, I would never, ever challenge your character. I think you are tremendous at what you do. I really do. But to me, it's just a process that I'm trying to have everybody consider tonight. And if it's to the fact where there are 3 votes to extend, then I will agree with them tonight. I have no issue with that at all. I have no issue with your work, what you do, how you represent the city. To me, it's just a process, and are we looking at the process the right way tonight? Or do we wait till next month for a full majority, or do we move forward? So that's all I'm saying. Trust me, your character to me is better than mine, which is hard to believe. So, Marcy?
Well, I agree with what you're saying, all of you mostly. First, I do want to say that Max, in my opinion, has done a fabulous job representing our city over the years. Not that I've been here a very long time, but for the years that I have been here, I've witnessed and appreciate your professionalism and your dedication, which is very evident throughout the years that I've been here. I also have looked into our charter. I read it again. I can't believe it's sitting on my, the book is sitting on my kitchen table. Brian was like, what is that? But I did go back and read it, and it's very clear that the hiring and firing of the city attorney, and see that it's the sole discretion, or at the sole discretion of the city council. I've also learned and spoke to other, like David did, other places in which you were working and are now continue to work, including West Palm. And I've also looked into the fees, like you did a little presentation here, and spoke to other municipalities to find out how they went about hiring their attorneys, some of which, of course, are in-house, and some are what we said in our outhouse, whatever you call them, contract. And I think there are a lot of important things that we have to consider, and we have a lot of things going on, very important things that are going on, like David had mentioned, and also Bert. We do have the issue right now with the SOE, the PAC, and we have to resolve that. Max is knee-deep in that process right now, going back and forth. We have, like you had said, several lawsuits, including the BJ's, that's currently ongoing. We have other very large-scale land use and zoning projects that are ongoing currently, and we have to consider that as well, such as Brigger and even Minto, like we looked at before, or we just reviewed. We have questions, of course, even that one, which is not in our city. I would hate to see an interruption in service and representation, of course, and also think that it would be very tough on staff and possibly very inefficient to have to train someone like you had mentioned. I agree with that. And it would take a long time. Having looked at that big book of our Code of Ordinances, land use regulations, and land development regulations, I should say, it's going to take a long time for someone to go back and to learn that, of course. Although, according to our charter, as I read, it's not necessary for all of us to be present, and there are many areas in our charter that says we have to all be present for a vote, but this is not it. I would like to have Joe here, just because I think that that would be fair. It's not, timing is everything, of course. I know you didn't mean for it to be when he's not here, it just happened. So that's not your intent, and it's not his intent to not be here, I know, to vote on that, and I would love to hear what he has to say. There is no question that I would rather have you here representing us than an unfamiliar person, especially an unfamiliar person from Corbin and White, because none of them have really worked in our city besides you and Abigail, correct? For the most part, at least since I've been here, at least. So I think that that's clear to me. But it would be nice, I think, to have all of us here to make a unanimous vote, in my opinion. And again, I agree with what Bert said about your character, your work, and everything. So I would definitely want you to be here at least for the next 30 days so that we can discuss it again, but I'm looking forward to the future as well.
Eric?
Well, it sounds to me like there are three of us here who would go forward tonight. I know you would like to see Joe here, but I can't imagine any circumstance in which Joe would not agree with what we've said and what I'm about to say. Frankly, we all think the world of Max, I think. He's done a tremendous job for this city over the last 6-7 years. When Max represented us on an interim basis with the under the Corbett and White banner, and we eventually chose him. I chose Max. I didn't choose the firm, frankly, because I had a relationship with Max over that year that, frankly, was all positive, and I got to know him at that time. And of course, I've continued to get to know him and his work for the past 6 years. And so, consequently, I'm very supportive of him. The other factor that we should take into consideration is our staff. I've had many staff members come up to me personally and tell me how they have interacted with Max and how important it is for them to continue to interact with him on an ongoing basis, on a future basis. That means a lot to me. Frankly, we talk a lot about here, a lot about staff up here when we praise them for all the good, hard work they have been doing over the years, and I continue to do that. They are a tremendous staff, and Ron, you've done a great job in putting this group together. But they are the nucleus of the city of Palm Beach Gardens. They make this city run. And one of the things that I note when in speaking to them is they all feel that Max is integral to that, because Max is basically the gatekeeper when it comes to legal matters. I think that continuity is really important in all of this. It really is. I couldn't imagine, frankly, going out to RFQ on this situation at all, because I can't imagine finding someone who's as good as Max. And I know you're probably blushing a little bit, but it's true. I think he's been. Now I've been here a long time. Joe has been here a long time too. I don't speak for him, but he's. The truth is, I've served under many city attorneys. Some of them better than others, but I can't imagine, frankly, that any city attorney that I've served with in the city is any better than Max. Max is he's good. He's really good, does a great job. So I'm prepared to vote tonight. I really am. I'd like to do that, just to give him the comfort to knowing that he will be our city attorney going forward. I think we owe that to him, frankly, especially after all the nice things that we're saying about him. I mean, I haven't heard one negative thing up here tonight. And if there was a reason to tell me why we should go out to RFQ, I'd like to hear it, but I haven't heard it. And so, having spoken last, I guess what I'd like to do is make a motion, but it's up to you guys whether you.
I just have another comment. I know that this is not a contract that we're voting on. This is
No, it's an agreement.
letter agreement that's that can be null and void with a very short notice period.
We could fire him
At any time. Well, that's very short notice period, isn't it?
No, he served. He served.
Right,
with
it's a
the
phone call, but and like I said, whether it's and I'm not arguing with the fact that I want him to be here. I think that he should be our city attorney. But what I'm suggesting is that we just continue his services here until we can have a discussion amongst all of us. Not that we, RFP or not. I think that we should all have the benefit of the discussion together. It was what my suggestion was. Because I felt that Joe's been here for such a long time that he should be part of the conversation. That's the only reason that one of the reasons that I wanted him to
And
be here.
I understand how you feel, and frankly, there are certain decisions that we should make as a body, 5 of us together. This one in particular, especially given all the things we've said here tonight, I can't imagine Joe would change it. And in fact, if he did, he'd be in a distinct minority. And I don't want to speak for him. I can't. I haven't spoken to him about this. But I just don't see the benefit, frankly, in waiting. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, there's no issue with, as far as extending the contract and moving forward. The issue is I would like it on the agenda next month for final discussion with Joe here to determine if we do the RFQ or if we continue with the agreement that we might approve tonight, and that would be the end of it.
Well, what I'm hearing here is that nobody wants to do an RFQ.
Okay, that's...
Well,
Am I
no,
correct?
what I'm saying is I'd like to hear what Joe's comments are. I'm torn both ways.
Well, what would be the benefit of an RFQ is what I'm saying. I don't want to beat this thing to death. I'd really like to move on, but frankly, it doesn't make sense. If we all feel that an RFQ is almost a moot point, what can Joe possibly say other than, I don't know, transparency? Is that what we're talking about? Because this is a very transparent discussion we're having. We're having this in front of an audience. It's being broadcast outside. There's a reporter in the room. There's nothing opaque about this.
Well, there's no contract to approve or anything.
This isn't a contract. It's an agreement. That's all it is, and the agreement can be abrogated at any time. It can be
Even at the next month's meeting.
at the next month's meeting.
Well, that's really all I'm asking, is essentially we can approve it tonight. I don't have any issue with that, but with additional discussion next month with Joe here to make a final rendering, if what we did tonight was okay with him, or if he thinks we should do an outside RFQ, and then we would take a vote at that point on that and see where it goes.
But we can do that at any time, so.
But I don't want to wait 6 months. It's not fair to Max. It's not fair to the process. If Joe's here next month, we have the discussion next month, and we either go forward or RFQ it and then move forward with that chart that Ron had put together in the process.
Well, if we approve this, here, I guess this is probably the way to do it. Motion to retain Max with a discussion on the agenda next month. But I feel like I don't feel like we're going to be taking another course.
Mr. Mayor,
That's my point.
Yes.
please, if I may make a suggestion, if you go ahead and approve the hiring of Max tonight, I think it would be more prudent not to have it conditioned on anything. Just make him your attorney tonight, if that's your will. And then I'll be happy to put on the agenda for the next meeting if at your
To me,
direction.
that's fair.
That was my motion, actually.
Because you can terminate at any time, but at least make him the attorney so that we can all move forward here.
Yeah, that was actually.
And I'll put it on the agenda for next.
That was actually what my motion is, although Max, real quick, what's the name of your firm?
Matt.
Loman Law Group.
Loman Law.
Well, Loman Law Group. Okay, I'll just restate the motion. A motion to retain the Loman Law Group.
And authorize the mayor to sign the fee letter.
Okay. And authorize the mayor to sign the, what was the thing?
letter.
Fee letter.
Fee letter.
I'll second.
Okay.
Go third it.
All right, got a motion, 2 seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. And we'll have it on the agenda for next month.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, another little item that I'd bring to your attention would be, as you're all aware, and that we have a special issue regarding the potential referendum election and the supervisor of election and the outstanding position that Max has helped this council with at your direction to be able to protect the process so that those people who are trying to petition their government for change are protected. Max has done an excellent job in correspondence back and forth with the SOE and their attorney back and forth. We have reached at this point a standstill. We feel that we've done everything that we know how to do at this point in trying to help the process along and convince the SOE to, should they comply with all of their ballots, to put the ballot language on the for the election in November. We have no response from her yet that I'm aware of regarding Max's last correspondence. The petitioners continue to do the petitions and bring them in and attempt to get them certified. Unless you have further direction, we're sort of at a standstill. Excuse me.
I don't know, what else can we do? What else can you do? So I could,
Except wait to see what the SOE does.
right.
Until she does something, there's not much else we can do to continue to move the process forward.
So we sent a letter, we approved the resolution. She sent it back saying it wasn't correct. We've sent another follow-up letter giving her our issues and that it is correct and should be on the ballot. It's time to move forward. So now it's her decision.
If they get the
Yeah, the required signatures, let's assume they do, then it should be on the ballot in November. Okay, we've done everything possible.
That's correct. And then the Term Limits Committee has filed, it's my understanding that Mr. Doley forwarded me a copy of it. They filed a declaratory action seeking her, asking a judge to, it was a, if I misstated, I'm sure he could correct me, but it was for a declaratory action and injunctive relief as well as a writ of mandamus to compel her to do her job, basically.
And what's the time frame that will get an answer
Typically,
back
they
to
get
the judge?
expedited hearings, but I don't know if it's set yet. Mr. Deloy might be able to answer that question for you. I know he is here.
Okay. Yeah, let me, hold on a second. All right, do we have any other comments or issues on that special election? Anything for Max or Ron on that?
No, but your letter was an excellent letter.
Yes.
I mean, it did specify that, I mean, I know my November election, my first election was a November election, and there was no council approved language put on the ballot or request to put my name on it. It was just Patty talking to her and saying, put this on the ballot,
Right.
and she did. So
Okay.
I think that's pretty clear. She set her own precedent, in my opinion.
I think what Max is saying, it's not our place to put the ballot language or
Well, I
to
agree.
craft ballot
It's-
language,
If it's a citizen-initiated,
then the citizens do it.
which, right.
And it
having
should be
us
their
approve
ballot
something
language.
It
defeats
should
the
be
whole
their ballot language,
purpose.
not ours, because we
Okay.
don't need to be involved in that.
You know,
All right.
and I feel like we have protected, as far as we can, the First Amendment rights of the petitioners. And this is a constitutional issue to me. This is the First Amendment, gives you the right to petition your government. And it seems like the SOE is denying that right. So
Okay.
I think we've done everything that we possibly can do.
All right, let's move on to comments from the public. Mr. DeLuey, would you want to come up, please? Just name and address for the record, please.
James Deloy, 342 Chambord Terrace, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I think there are some things you can do actually to help foster the democratic process, and if you'd like to join us as a friend well, you can join us on the lawsuit as discussed. That is one way of doing this, because the SOE is telling the city that the city has no right to bring this up to a vote on the November ballot. And in fact, we do. And it's not just us that has the problem, it's the city that has the problem. So there's quite a bit that one can do to bring attention to this. And I hate for you to just, give up and say, well, we've done everything we can. We've wrote this letter. And by the way, you did write a fantastic letter. I thought that was great. And it helped me to draft the brief that we filed the other day. Yeah. Well, I think you have a reasonable fee, in fact. And I vote for you. So I would ask you to go back and confer with Max and perhaps join us in this deck action against the supervisor of elections, because the supervisor of elections does not have the right or the authority, according to her lawyer, in fact, to cherry pick which referendum she wants on the ballot. Right. And that's exactly what she's doing. And I've never seen anything like this. It's politics at its worst. She's drunk with power, and you can't do this. It's just unconstitutional. And I hope that you will be more vocal and will stand up with us to fight what's right. You may not agree with term limits. There's quite a few people in this room that don't agree with term limits, but we all agree in our democratic process, and that's what we need to uphold.
Oh, David said it the best. I mean, it's free speech. I mean, it's an amendment that we need to protect. Yeah, the First Amendment, so I agree.
And
Okay,
Michael
anything
Perugino
else?
would like to have a few words.
Okay. Mr. Perugini?
Sure.
Name and address, please, for the record.
Michael Perugini, 277 Sedona Way.
Thank you.
So as I'm sure Patty's reported to you, at this point, we've submitted approximately 4,000 petitions, so we've met at least the minimum threshold, or it says in excess of the 3781. I think that's the number, right? 10% of, so we've received 10% of the registered voters have signed our petition, and we've now met that threshold. So I think now some of them can be thrown out right from the SOE. So we're going to continue to turn in more. We expect to turn in approximately another 500 tomorrow. So we will be far in excess of the required amount. I don't see what else we need to do as well. James, you filed an emergency declaratory action for tomorrow, so
We got that.
hope to see
Yeah.
if we're going to be heard either tomorrow or Monday. Maybe there'll be a decision.
Okay. Keep us informed of that process, please.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. DeLuey, if you could just fill out a card with the clerk, please, if you don't mind, for speaking. Thank you. Steve Matheson?
Okay, well, exciting night here tonight at the City Council. For the record, I'm Steve Matheson. I'm here tonight on behalf of the PGA Corridor Association. Two simple things, one maybe not so simple thing. First, I want to invite you all to our September event, which will be the PGA Corridor Update. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. There's lots of interesting things happening. Second, I want to thank staff for working with us on a continuing basis, including Max, on a redo of some land development regulations as they pertain to the PGA Corridor. We still have some ongoing concerns. We're not in 100% agreement on the terms yet, but we're working through those together, and we think we'll arrive at something. We have a P&Z hearing, I think, coming up on the 12th, and we'll continue to work on an ongoing basis. Finally, and probably the most important thing to discuss tonight, is the PGA Corridor Association is firmly in favor of retaining Max Lohman and his firm as the attorney for Palm Beach Gardens. There's no doubt as to the intelligence, the common sense, the sensibility, and the rightness of that decision. Max has the experience, he has the history, he is very professional in carrying on his job, and we do not agree all the time by any means, but we do know that we can work things through in an intelligent and a professional fashion. It would be stupid to go to an RFQ, and we strongly urge you, and my board will be here for the next hearing, to urge you to retain Max and his services on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Steve, what was the date of your meeting in September? Do you have that?
I believe it's the 23rd. We'll send out an invitation. It's going to be a great presentation. There's great things going on, and you all are involved, and you help make it happen. Thank you.
Joni Elias?
John Elias, 1009 Diamond Head. I don't see why you had such a long discussion about retaining Max. I have been observing this council, and I said today to somebody, I bet I have been, Joe has been here longer because he was elected before I moved here, then Eric, and then me. I have attended more of the meetings, which I say, and I'm very proud of it because it's my hobby. And if this continues at age 87, I might run for council. Come on, guys.
You might be able to soon.
And I'll win, too.
We're not doubting that, Joni, trust me.
But I have seen and observed 4, 5 city attorneys. We have the best city attorney, and no offense to those that I like and still talk to and have given business to. One of my organizations gave business to one of the former city attorneys. But Max loves this city. We've had other people that have been here that haven't loved the city the way Max does. And he and Abby are a team. They're a team that are looking out, as Ron said, for us, because they are part of us. So as far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't be on the agenda next month. Max is our attorney and should be our attorney forever, as long as he will have us. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Carolyn Chaplin.
For the record, Carolyn Chaplick, 715 Hudson Bay Drive, Palm Beach Gardens. I almost forgot where I lived after listening to all this stuff. Anyway, everybody said what a wonderful night out it was on Tuesday night. You all took it away, but congratulations still, another thanks, and it was a wonderful night. It was fabulous. Got to see Trauma Hawk. I was glad I was on this side and not in it, but I'm glad to see that they were competent in case I ever have to use it. But it was absolutely wonderful, and another thank you is in order, even though the four of you said it. One other thing, it is freezing in this room. We could save a few more dollars on our budget if you raise the temperature.
We got a new chiller in here. It's working good.
Oh, and the chairs
that was a
are
year ago.
And then I just want to say, there was another thing about the medians I noticed that was on alternate A1A, south of Hood Road and north of the Gardens Mall, that were in really poor shape. And it's south of Frenchman's Reserve. I don't know if that's an unincorporated area, or if it's ours, but it's unincorporated,
county,
which I
yeah.
thought it was a, disgrace to, I knew it wasn't our city, but
County
maybe
project.
we could get on the county for that, because it was
We
quite
have,
overwhelming.
I have. I've called several times.
But thank you much for Night Out and everything you do. And I know Max has cleared up a lot of problems from other attorneys. Joan, I come after you, but a lot of times I don't come to the meetings, but I listen at home because the chairs are uncomfortable. But thank you anyway.
Aren't the chairs new? Yeah. Tough crowd tonight with the chairs and everything.
The older ones were nice and worn in
Yeah.
and comfortable. The new ones need
That's all the public comment cards I have. Next consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, move consent
Oh,
agenda.
sorry. Oh, you want another 3 minutes? Come on, man. Mr. Perugini, please come back up. Let's start the clock at 2 minutes, because he had a minute last time.
I just wanted to speak briefly for someone who's had to deal with Max and on both sides, being fined as the leader of my HOA, and calling him and having to, work out what was a good settlement for both of us, and all various issues. The letter to the supervisor of elections was a phenomenal letter. I think that in protecting the citizens in the process, we're very happy with the position you're taking. I highly recommend, based on his experience, based on in the dealings I've had with him, that you definitely approve him, keep him as the city attorney for Palm Beach Gardens.
All right. Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate that. Okay, that's all the cards I have now. I think I got everybody.
Mr. Chairman, move consent agenda.
Motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 4-0. First up tonight is Resolution 52, 2014. Will the clerk read the title?
Resolution 52, 2014, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, evidencing its intent to vacate and abandon its interest in that portion of Track Z, more commonly referred to as Elm Avenue, beginning south of Pacifico Court roadway and extending to the EPB 3C Canal, which is a platted right-of-way, approximately 80 feet wide, reserved for the right-of-way purposes, as shown on the plats of Paloma PUD, as recorded in Plat Book 108, page 144, and Cimarron Cove, as recorded in Plat Book 111, page 102, the public records of the Palm Beach County, providing that the vacated right-of-way parcel is more particularly described in Exhibit A, which is attached here too, providing for the recording of this resolution, providing an effective date and further purposes.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask for a staff presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Natalie Crowley, Director of Planning and Zoning. I'm here to briefly present the city-initiated proposed resolution to abandon Elm Avenue. Elm Avenue, as you all recall, was removed from the city's thoroughfare plan in 2008 via Ordinance 14. It is no longer needed for public road purposes. The current condition of the road, which is an 80-foot swath, approximately 3 acres, which is the subject area that we're talking about, it's heavily forested with native mature pine trees and significant upland habitat. The proposed abandonment will cause the property to escheat to the adjacent homeowners, and so the Paloma Homeowners Association will receive the eastern 40 feet and the western 40 feet will revert to the current owner, which is South Gardens LLC. This is the area in green that we are discussing. This is where my cursor is, Central Boulevard, and where the arrow is Hood Road, and then carrying down Elm Avenue here is the subject area. And it's fairly straightforward. Through the abandonment, the property will automatically revert. I did want to note that the site plan, which includes, the site plan, which includes the 341 units that you see before you, is scheduled for the City Council agenda in September, the next City Council agenda. It will be brought before you. The intent of the owners is to incorporate the 40 feet as a preserve area. And so what this will do is it will, in perpetuity, protect that swath so that the road remains a preserve. The other 40 feet that stays with Paloma will revert as a land use of open space. It'll assume the same use as the open space buffer. So essentially, the entire stretch of right-of-way will be protected as open space and a preserve area. And with that, staff recommends approval of Resolution 52.
Any questions of staff? Anybody wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back up for discussion or a vote.
Move Resolution 52, 2014.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Next up is Resolution 49, 2014. Will the clerk read the title?
Resolution 49, 2014, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, approving and ratifying a collective bargaining agreement with the Services Employees International Union, SEIU, Florida Public Services Union, for the fiscal years 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016, 2016, 2017, authorizing the mayor and the city manager to execute said agreement, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
I'm going to open the public hearing and ask for a staff presentation, please. Hey, Cheryl. How you doing?
Sit down. You could stand on this side. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, Cheryl Stewart, Human Resources Administrator. This is a ratification and approval of a collective bargaining agreement with the SEIU. The city team and SEIU team met twice on April 15th and June 12th to go through contract negotiations for a new contract effective 10/1/2014. This agreement covers about 69 employees throughout our Community Services Department. A tentative agreement was actually successfully reached at the end of the second session on June 12th, and on July 21st, the SEIU voted in support of ratification, and the vote was 40 yes to 5 no. There were 2 articles in the contract that had changes to them, and they were salaries and personal leave. What the salary article provides for is an updated salary plan that adjusts pay range minimums and maximums upwards by about 1%, and which helps us address our internal equity pay across employees, as well as compression, and helps us keeps pace with the local market that we compete with for employment. In addition to that, employees would receive an increase of 0.5% for each year that they received no pay increase in 2009 through 2012, for a total of up to 2% for those 4 years, as well as a 2.5% adjustment across the board to their base salary effective October 1st of 2014, with wage reopeners for the second and third years of the contract. The total cost is approximately $159,111 for those salary adjustments for next fiscal year. With respect to personal leave, the change would provide for the same cash-in amount, which is payment in lieu of the hours that employees accrue, which mirrors actually our city's personnel policies and procedures, and was also negotiated with the PBA union in their last contract, and it's based on years of service. As a result, this would be a 3-year contract for 2014 through 2017, and staff recommends approval.
Any questions of staff? Anybody wishing to speak on this item? I'm going to close the public hearing, and I just want to thank our employees for their patience. This certainly has been a long, drawn-out, kind of down period, if you will. We're starting to see recovery now in our city and in the state of Florida, and we're thankful that you guys hung in there with us for your efforts. And again, thank you for your patience. I think in the end, obviously, that's all going to work out. We're glad you're under the city umbrella. We're glad to have you working for us, and we look forward to a relationship moving forward. So thank you, everybody under that SEIU agreement.
Very well said.
Thank you.
And I wanted to echo that because I was mayor during the period of time when we weren't giving them raises. And I really appreciate the sacrifice that they made so that we were able to keep our tax rate, low. And, it is time. It's $159,000. I think it's the best spent $159,000.
I agree 100%.
So I really do want to see Norm and Barbara back there, who I think are both in SEIU. If you'll please tell everybody how much we as a council appreciate the sacrifice that you made over those 4 years. So it really is appreciated, and it was noticed.
Yep, absolutely. I can't say it better than these two have said it, and I agree, absolutely. With that, move resolution 49, 2014.
Second.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 4-0. Next up, Resolution 50, 2014. Will the clerk read the title?
Wait.
Let's kick her off.
I had a question for Max, and I didn't follow up earlier. Do I need to recuse myself for this because it's?
You didn't get my email, did you?
No, I didn't get an email.
I sent you an email.
Sorry.
It was around 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Sorry about. I'm sure you did.
Obviously, Max, a lot of things she said about you, she was kidding. I mean, I read your emails right off the bat.
Ultimately, if this is a budgeted line item for the council to pay for conferences and reasonable per diem for you guys to go, it's a reimbursement matter. So it would appear to me, based upon what I know about this conference and know about you, that this would not inure to your personal private gain or loss. However, if you think going to this conference and being reimbursed for the expenses or them paying for it would somehow inure to the private gain or loss of a principal or a relative, then it would be appropriate to recuse yourself. But as I never tell council members, no, don't you recuse yourself, because it's ultimately your choice, it would not appear to me that this would represent a conflict. If we can, we still have a quorum.
Right.
If you did recuse yourself.
But I do want to say that I am paying for my own hotel. I'm not asking for any reimbursement like I did before, but they are paying for my registration, which I think they actually already have. They meaning the city.
And this
Mr. Mayor.
this only designates you a voting
As
member.
a voting member,
voting
yes.
delegate, right? So,
Well, it improves the
Yes, sir.
costs for the
Oh, it
conference.
does? Okay, I
Yes,
didn't know.
It does. It does two things.
We have a majority with 3.
Everything is in compliance with personnel rules and regulations.
Yes.
Okay.
And all of the, and as I'm sorry, just as I'd said in the email you didn't get, I'm so sorry that you didn't receive it.
No, it's
That,
probably me that didn't see it.
all of these charges are verifiable and standard per diem rates. So there's no, well, as you say in the military and the Navy, there's not a boondoggle. There's no fluff in here. It's all just straight reimbursement. So there's nothing in here that is actually a gain. It's just reimbursement for the costs, and it's in compliance with the personnel policies and also in compliance with the
I think
budget item that you guys have
I'll
done
just
as a
step
council.
out we're better safe than sorry, and
There's nothing wrong with that, and you can
this
fill out your
way
form.
I just don't want to put you guys in a. Yes, so
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself, and I'm going to walk over to Patty and get my little form.
This is a public hearing, right?
Yeah, I've got a
It's just a regular
regular.
It's a regular resolution?
Okay, Resolution 50, 2014. Will the clerk read the title, please?
Resolution 50, 2014, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, designating Councilmember Marcy Tinsley as a voting delegate for the City of Palm Beach Gardens at the Florida League of Cities Annual Conference being held August 14 to 16, 2014, providing an effective date for the purposes.
We can open the public hearing and ask for a staff presentation. Do we have one? We don't need one?
No, we don't.
Well, just throw some, there's some numbers out. Marcy, give the presentation for yourself. No?
I do have a request of Marcy, which I think is all right. Susan Haney is running for second vice president of the Florida League of Cities. She is from Boca Raton and member of the Palm Beach County League of Cities. I think that our vote should go towards Susan Haney.
I'll second that. She's the chairman of the MPO, and I think she's been doing a great job. So I would support her for that as well.
I'm on board as well. That's fine.
If you would vote for her, that would be great.
Anybody wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back up for a vote.
Mr. Chairman, move Resolution 50, 2014.
Guess I better second it, huh?
Yeah, you better.
Got a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. We're getting less and less here. Next up, we have items for council action and discussion. Marcy, did you have something you said?
Really, just a couple things, and I know I already spoke to Ron about this a little bit. As I stated before, we had a joint meeting with the Park and Rec Advisory Board and the PBGYA, and actually it was a very good meeting. We had a lot of good comments. Staff, I think, did an excellent job in explaining the way the budget works, which is very different than most other municipalities and the county, for that matter. We do have a shortfall in our budget as it relates to athletics, park athletics and field maintenance, things like that, which I know recreation in general and parks in general never are 100% profitable. But with that said, PBGYA is looking and trying to find some ways to help bridge the gap. As are we as a city. We're trying to help come up with ways. Staff came up with a whole slew of ideas, a lot of which worked actually for both parties at the meeting, and I think that was great. I think we obviously have an issue when it comes to Park and Rec, and that is we need space. We need more fields. We don't have, and like I said this before, we don't have the facilities that even Jupiter, the JTA, they utilize 3 parks that are county parks, and we don't have that opportunity. As well as other areas, the south area of the county, the south part of the county, they have county parks that they use. We have 58%, I believe is the number, of non-residents using our facilities. And so with that, we're not gonna, but a lot of municipalities have a large part, in the north end, I should say, of Jupiter, the same thing. They have a very large population of non-Jupiter residents that use the Jupiter facilities, but they do have those 3 county parks. What I'm getting at is I'd like to put on the next agenda an item, a line item on the next agenda to have an opportunity to talk about the county property. And that is one area in which we can at least help with that need for fields. I know we spoke about the Brigger property, about district parks. I know the county, when they have a large plan development like we just saw with Minto, they tend to require PUDs to dedicate large tracts of land for park use, for public park. In our case, we have a piece of property right on Central Boulevard that can be used as something, whether it's in part passive, but then an area that we can utilize for the fields that we need. I think we need to discuss that. I did have meetings. I don't want to discuss it now because we're not all here, but I did have meetings with the county, and I'd like to discuss the options and see how we can move forward. So with that said, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to add that to next It could even be, because I know it
This
seems
is-
like
yeah,
we're moving a
September
lot of
3rd is
things
gonna
to
be,
September 3rd.
yeah, maybe the
Maybe
18th.
the following September one, the second one, if that works better.
The first meeting in September is
Well,
loaded.
right, so let's do it to the, let's add it
But
to
if
the
it's
next
the
one.
second one on the 18th, I believe it is, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay with that, David?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. You know, our problem is multi-purpose fields, which I'm sure PBGYA told you is multi. I think we were okay in baseball fields and we're pretty good in softball fields, but it's soccer and
Soccer, football, lacrosse, those are
the
sports that are...
flag football guys, you know, and lacrosse. I'll tell you, lacrosse is hard on a field.
And also, I'd like to just put a little plug into, I know it's soon, we're entering budget time, and we have a very hardworking staff in the Park and Rec department, and in all of our departments, I have to say. But, you know, as I've learned going through this process, there are not very many people in that department, and, you know, I think that we need to help offset that department by maybe possibly considering adding some more dollars into their in-budget process, or in budget time, because I think that we need to also help bridge the gap so that it's not a,
One of the things that PGYAA has done for us as a city is they've taken over all of our youth athletic programs, and they have volunteers, so it's volunteer hours, not paid staff time.
which helps greatly.
So our very last program, oddly enough, was flag football that went to the PBGYA. And I gotta say, we ran the programs good, but the PBGYA puts a little more emphasis on it. They provide better uniforms. The equipment's a little bit better. They just do a great job of running the program because it's all volunteers, and they have saved us oodles of dollars.
And even if it's dollars, capital dollars, to put into some infrastructure to convert fields or space from one use to a use that is much more needed and overburdened. Anyway, that's just my little say in the matter, and we'll take it.
Well, as we get the budget this month, those are some of the discussions you could have with staff and with Ron, obviously, and then we'll, take those in considerations, other areas.
I'm done now.
Okay, any other council actions, discussions? No. City attorney report, anything?
I think there's been plenty of discussion about me.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. Good night.